Chapter 313. The Lu Sanyang that Ji Lingxi spoke of was a merchant. However, the goods that this merchant was selling were people. How could a cultivator take a lowly character like a prostitute seriously? However, Lu Sanyang was no ordinary prostitute. She did business. She traveled around Tianxian, searching for orphaned girls from all over the world. Among them, she chose girls with outstanding looks, intelligence, and character and trained them. She made sure that the orphaned girls she chose were well versed in poetry, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. If the orphaned girls were gifted in cultivation, she would not hesitate to teach them mystical qi cultivation methods and cultivation base. Only when these girls were accomplished in their studies would they be sold to noble families to be used as maids. Every one of these women was pure and intelligent. They were well-behaved and adorable. Their looks were not ordinary either. As for how to serve their masters, they were even more adept, caring, and meticulous. Such maids would never flirt or seduce their masters. Once the deal was made, the maids would be loyal to their masters and would never betray them. One could only imagine the exorbitant price of maids of such quality. The maids trained by Lu Sanyang were divided into 3 classes, 1, Huang, and Blue. The maids in white were the best of the best. Any one of them could be sold for no less than 500,000 taels of silver. This kind of transaction price was something that even a wealthy family would flinch at. What Yunyang had prepared for the 2 girls were actually maids dressed in white. In other words, he had spent at least 2 million silver taels just to serve the 2 of them. Even when the 2 girls were at home, they had never been able to enjoy such treatment. It was just that Yunyang's attitude was too strange. Based on what Yu Rulan knew about Ji Lingxi's sweetheart and admirer, your thoughtful care is understandable. However, where did you come from and how did you speak to Ji Lingxi in such an old-fashioned tone? She thought to herself, Yu Rulan thought to herself. If one were to close their eyes and listen to it, almost every sentence sounded like a father or elder brother lecturing an ignorant daughter or sister. In the future, in front of outsiders, you will be my cousins. Yunyang said, we're not strong enough right now. We have to deal with the enemy first. When we're sure that we're safe, we'll make other arrangements. What do you say? His words were directed at Yu Rulan. He was still as respectful to her as before, completely interested in her. Yu Rulan nodded and said, young Master Yun's arrangement is appropriate. I have no objections. Ji Lingxi asked, who's the elder cousin sister and who's the younger cousin sister? Yunyang frowned and said, is there a need to ask? Ji Lingxi replied angrily, it's understandable that Sister Lan is the elder cousin sister, but if you really want to argue about it, you're not necessarily older than me. Why do I have to be the younger cousin sister? Can't you have 2 cousins? Yunyang said unhappily, be good. Don't argue over these minor details. Sister Lan is injured, she needs rest. Don't make a fuss. Obedient? Ji Lingxi almost fainted. This tone again. This tone again. Are you trying to anger me to death? Even if what you said was reasonable and humane, it wasn't right to treat me like that, okay? Sister Lan. After Yunyang left, Ji Lingxi pouted and said unhappily, do you think there's something wrong with this bastard's brain? Tell me, what's with his attitude? She said hesitantly, it wasn't like this the last time. She recalled the last time she left and when she bid farewell to Yunyang, he had clearly shown some affection between a man and a woman. At the very least, the melancholy was real and genuine. If it were not so, Ji Lingxi would not have cherished the phoenix's cry so much. Although the phoenix's cry was a spiritual weapon that no one would give up on, the saber had another meaning to Ji Lingxi. The saber was a gift from Yunyang, a testament to the friendship between the 2 of them. But why did this guy suddenly act like an old man after going out for a stroll? What was wrong with him acting like an elder everywhere he went? If you're so capable, why don't you go to heaven instead? Ji Lingxi was fuming, but Yu Rolan was even more emotional. Although she was deeply in love with Ji Lingfeng and would not change even until death, she was extremely confident in her own looks. She could not understand why Yun Yang kept calling her sister Lan and treated her like an elder since the moment they met. Could it be that her heart had aged but her face did not look old? Otherwise, why would Yun Yang treat her like this? But when she was with her sisters, she was clearly very popular. In terms of appearance, temperament, and appearance, she was the most outstanding one. How could this be? Women were such strange creatures. As long as beauty and emotions were involved, their IQ would instantly drop to 0, or even go into the negative. The young lord had already arrived at Tiantang City and would arrive at the residence of Yun at any time. Yun Yang had to be prepared. Of course, Yun Yang would not sit idly by. The 4 noble young masters were waiting for him to train the mystical beasts. Their necks had grown long from the weight. How could Yun Yang forget that he still had a great help when a strong enemy could come knocking on his door at any time? Let spring, summer, autumn, and winter come over with their mystical spiritual beasts. Yun Yang said generously, I'll work hard for a few days to help them look after their mystical beasts. In less than an hour, Dong Tianling and the other 3 gathered at the residence of Yun. Their gazes towards Yun Yang were filled with resentment. Qiu Yunsan and the other 2 had come with their mystical beasts. They were here for serious business. As for Dong Tianling, his family had yet to get their hands on the mystical beast. Therefore, young Master Dong Tianling's arrival this time was purely to cause trouble. This fellow only had one simple thought: since he did not manage to get his hands on the mystical beasts, the rest of them would not have an easy time either. It was a typical slut's mentality. Don't look at me with such resentful gazes. Those who don't know better will wonder what I've done to all of you. Yun Yang said, haven't I been busy recently? Don't tell me all of you don't know. The 4 young masters were extremely resentful. We really didn't see how busy you were. It's so awkward for us to stay in Tiantang City now. They had nothing to do every day and dared not roam around. Sirah's house, the last place they could spend their time, was gone. The only thing they could do was to gather together and brag. The 4 of them played mahjong and gambled every day. After playing for so long, they had gradually lost interest in gambling. None of them were lacking money. In the end, they decided to gamble with their banknotes. Whoever lost would have to tear their banknotes into shreds. There was a set number of shreds. But after playing this game for a few days, he was tired of it. It was rare for them to meet you, but it was to help you pick up girls and put on an act. We simply couldn't find a reason for us to be here anymore. The 4 of us gathered together every day. Could it be that we were really gay? Although we're gay friends, we can't really be gay. It's so chaotic out there now. The 4 Seasons Tower is about to subdue the world by force and bathe the martial world in blood. Logically speaking, we should go back as soon as possible and hide in the safety of our homes. That's the best option. However, we have to stay here and wait for your summons because of this mystical beast cub. Take out your pig. Take out your bear. Take out your tiger. Yun Yang turned to look at Dong Tianling. What about you? Dong Tianling sighed, his face dejected. I can only take out my bird. Go to hell. Find a place where there's no one to play with your bird. Everyone, including Yun Yang, looked at him in disdain, wishing they could just beat this fellow up. But in the next moment, everyone's eyes widened in unison. Dong Tianling had actually taken out a bird. His hand stretched out from his embrace. In his palm was a young bird that had just hatched. It looked like it could not even stand properly. Everyone was dumbfounded and speechless. Even Yun Yang was speechless. The mystical beast cub that Dong Tianling had taken out was, without a doubt, a bird cub. However, this bird was exceptionally unusual. Just by looking at the newly hatched cub, one could tell what kind of bird it was. Naturally, it had an extraordinary appearance. My family came across this by accident and sent it to me. Dong Tianlong looked as if he had nothing left to live for. I didn't expect my family to be so resourceful, to actually be able to get a flying mystical beast. Chun Wanfeng stared at the trembling bird for a long time before he finally grinned. Not bad indeed. The Dong family is indeed resourceful. I'm impressed. Yun Yang, however, was exasperated. This bird, a nestling that had just hatched, had circles of black inscriptions around its eyes. Its nose was right in the middle of its eyes, with 2 tiny holes. Its beak was pointed and long. This bird's appearance was so ugly that it would definitely be hated by anyone who saw it. Phantom vulture. There was no mistaking it. This is indeed the offspring of a 7th-level pinnacle mystical beast. It's not easy for your family to get their hands on it. Yun Yang looked like he wanted to beat someone up. It's just that this thing really makes me want to curse. Phantom vulture, a 7th-level pinnacle mystical beast. It flew fast, had a ferocious temperament, and its combat ability was not weak either. However, there was a flaw. This kind of vulture had a very annoying habit. Its food was carrion, which meant that it only ate dead bodies. It ate nothing else. Moreover, it only ate the rotten flesh of the dead, nothing else. It was said that once a phantom vulture hatched, it would be abandoned by the mother bird. This meant that from the day it hatched, this phantom vulture would have to survive on its own, without the buffer of nurturing and adaptation. However, this habit of the phantom vulture did not attract any attention. In spite of this, other mystical beasts rarely bullied them. This was because the phantom vulture carried corpse poison from the day it was born. Although the poison that the phantom vulture was born with was not very potent, the poison of a newborn phantom vulture was even milder. Even if it were to be directly used on a human body, it would not cause too much harm, but it would still make people uncomfortable. It could be said that the phantom vulture was the most disgusting, most disliked and least reared flying mystical beast in the Tianxian continent. It was too easy to obtain this mystical beast, one only needed to pick it up in the dense forest. Since it was abandoned at birth, it would not be hunted by other mystical beasts. Therefore, it would be a piece of cake to obtain such a young one. The problem was what would happen after obtaining it. How would you raise it? It would eat corpses every day, the rotten kind. Where would you raise it? Just at home? Do you still want your home? It would stink every day. Wouldn't your home become as eerie and terrifying as hell? Looking at this tiny cub, everyone couldn't help but pinch their noses. Their eyes were filled with undisguised loathing. It's true that the bird is like the person. Yun Yang was infuriated. What do you mean by bringing this thing to my house? Do you want to turn my house into a rotting ground? Chapter 314. Boss, please don't. Dong Tianlong begged, I have no choice. What can I do when the family sends it over? Give me a chance, won't you? Get out. Take your bird and get out of here. Yun Yang did not say another word, mercilessly ordering his guest to leave. What do you mean by bringing this thing to my house? In order to feed this bird, are you going to bring over a few rotting corpses? Dong Tianlong's family experts were speechless at the situation. What did he mean by the family sending it over? Since the beginning of time, which family could be so immoral to do something so immoral? Picking up a phantom vulture to raise? Dong Tianlong had gone to the mystical beast market out of boredom these few days and was tricked into buying an egg. It was actually a phantom vulture when it hatched. This fellow had insisted on showing it to Yun Yang to try his luck. This had nothing to do with the family at all. Don't ruin our family's reputation. Dong Tianlong looked like he was about to cry as he threw the phantom vulture hatchling to the ground and said, I knew this fellow was a jinx. I'll go wash my hands now. The phantom vulture hatchling staggered as it was thrown to the ground and squeaked. Its tiny eyes darted around before it suddenly sprinted over and hugged Yun Yang's leg. Before Yun Yang could vent his anger, he was unexpectedly hugged by the phantom vulture hatchling. He was even more furious. I asked you to throw it out. I didn't ask you to leave it in my house. Now, this disgusting phantom vulture actually treats me as its owner. But this little bird that had just hatched, wasn't its speed a little too fast? An adult phantom vulture's flying speed was not slow, but this was the speed of moving on the ground. Yun Yang was puzzled by the current situation for a moment before he saw the little bird crawl up from his feet. It crawled all the way to his feet and laid down comfortably with its limbs spread out. Yun Yang grew increasingly disgusted. This was not a good thing. It was known as the dirtiest mystical beast in the world, yet he had to chase it away and consider if he should just stomp it to death. It was so disgusting that it was worse than stepping on dog feces. At this moment, Emmy moved in the sea of consciousness, sending a message. Yun Yang was stunned. He was surprised to feel a breath of life being transmitted to the little phantom vulture silently. Had Emmy taken the initiative to give it a breath of life? What was going on? This little miser, when did he become so generous? The little cub immediately screeched with joy, and even its spirits were lifted. Its two bare little wings flapped for a while. What's going on? Emmy? Why are you so generous this time? Isn't that a phantom vulture? Yun Yang looked at the tiny cub by his feet with a complicated gaze. This little thing was not a phantom vulture. But no matter how you looked at it, it was obvious. Dong Tianling had taken the little fellow out from his embrace just now. Even if the poison in the nestling of the phantom vulture was faint, Dong Tianling did not seem to be affected at all when he had it in his embrace. Yun Yang immediately thought of something else that was not right. Forget it, it's a life anyway. Yun Yang activated his movie king mode and sighed faintly. Lao Mei, keep it. The experts from the noble families were puzzled by Yun Yang's reaction. The phantom vulture was one of the mystical beasts that could not be tamed since the beginning of time. Coupled with its hideous appearance, it did not even qualify to be an ornamental object, not to mention that this creature would not eat anything other than rotting carcasses. What was the point of keeping it? The thoughts of these worldly young masters were incomprehensible. They were disgusted to death just now. Why were they suddenly moved by compassion? The residence of Yun is huge and everyone has to look after their mystical beasts as well as ensure the needs of the little ones. Let us stay in the residence of Yun for now. Yun Yang said, it's a good time to renovate and split the yard into 4. Everyone will be together from the beginning to the end, so we can avoid the problem of miscommunication. Of course, everyone agreed with this suggestion. It was more than what they could ask for. The 4 families had been worried that their mystical beasts would become Yun Yang's as they cultivated them. That would be troublesome. Now that they could watch over them from time to time, there was no need to worry about this. The residence of heavenly clouds was huge. Not only did it have a main house, there were also 4 courtyards in the north, south, east, and west. As the residence of a marquis, it would definitely exceed that of an ordinary official. Other than Lao Mei, Fang Mafei, and Bai Shue, there was no one else around Yun Yang. More than 80% of the rooms in the huge residence of Yun were empty. Now, the spring and summer families stayed in the west guest room while the autumn and winter families stayed in the south guest room. Yun Yang, on the other hand, moved into the main house that had been reserved for Marquis Yun. As for the small house that Yun Yang had stayed in the north, it was now occupied by Ji Lingxi, Yu Rolan, and the 4 young maids. In this way, the residence of Yun, which was originally deserted, was suddenly filled with people. After Yun Yang had settled everyone from the 4 families, he went to his room with the excuse of taking a break. Of course, he brought the disgusting phantom vulture along with him. His priority now was to figure out what this thing was. How did the saying go? A toad that doesn't bite is disgusting. If it were not for Emmy's interference, this little fellow would have been smashed into meat paste by Yun-Yang. Of course, the little fellow did not know how annoying it was at its current stage. Yun-Yang called out to it and it hopped over excitedly. It did not look like the one who could not even stand properly when it had just appeared. Perhaps it was because Yun-Yang's summoning was too effective or that Emmy's air of vitality had provided the energy, but Yun-Yang's summoning was more reliable. After all, the little fellow had just seen Yun-Yang and was already full of energy, running to him. "Tell me quickly, what is going on?" "Emmy?" Yun-Yang asked. "Ayaya." Emmy's vines fluttered and danced. "You say this isn't a phantom vulture? Then this is." Yun-Yang was stunned. According to Emmy, this little fellow was definitely not a phantom vulture, it should be a rare and superior species. However, no matter how Yun-Yang looked at it, he felt that it was a phantom vulture. There was no difference at all, it was a disgusting creature no matter how he looked at it. Since Emmy had never missed its mark so far, Yun-Yang suppressed his discomfort and held the little fellow in his palm to observe it carefully. The little fellow stared at Yun-Yang with its round eyes as well. The eyes, the nose, the mouth, the appearance, it was a phantom vulture. There was no difference at all. This image was the embodiment of the rumored phantom vulture. If one were to insist on the difference between this little fellow and a phantom vulture. This little thing did not seem to have the stench of a corpse that the phantom vulture was born with. Yun-Yang suddenly recalled that one of the main reasons why the phantom vulture was regarded as the dirtiest and most disgusting flying mystical beast in this world was that it carried an indescribable stench when it hatched from its shell. The stench during that period of time could not be tolerated by anyone or any living creature. Perhaps, it should be said that the reason the phantom vulture chicks were abandoned by their mother the moment they hatched was because of the indescribable stench. Yun-Yang could understand this feeling. The couple had been eagerly waiting for the egg to hatch, fully expecting a beautiful baby to come out, but an ugly creature had popped out of nowhere. It was fine if it was an ugly creature. However, this ugly creature carried a stench that could almost poison one to death with just a whiff. To think that they would have to endure this stench and raise it into a bird? How long would that take? The eagle couple might really die from the stench in such a long period of time. If it had been someone else, the young couple would have exclaimed, "F***ck me. Did I give birth to this?" Then, they would have fled with their noses covered. Abandoning it was actually a natural reaction of a bird, it was understandable. As Yun-Yang thought of this, he suddenly had a strange thought: could I have been abandoned because I was stinky when I was born? As he thought about it, he chuckled to himself. This was absolutely impossible. He was so handsome. How could there be a time when I was stinky? It was impossible, it should not be. As for the little fellow in front of him, not only did it not have the disgusting stench, it even had a faint milky fragrance. Yun-Yang observed as he pondered. Since he had the thought that the little fellow before him was not a phantom vulture, it was easier to focus on the key points of observation. After a careful examination, he found a few other characteristics that were different from the phantom vulture chicks. According to the data, the phantom vulture's claws had 4 fingers, but this little fellow was different. Each of its claws only had 3 fingers, but it was steady when it stepped on the ground. Besides, Yun-Yang found a faint white trail on top of its head, going all the way down from the back of its head to the base of its tail. Even the phantom vulture did not have this. You mean, what breed is this little fellow? You actually don't know either? Yun-Yang was confused. Then why are you reacting like this? What? What? Yun-Yang was utterly shocked. You said that this little fellow carries the aura of the Holy Phoenix's bloodline? Really? Yun-Yang was utterly shocked by Emmy's answer. It was utterly unbelievable. The Holy Phoenix? How could this be? The phoenix and the dragon had always been mythical beasts, or rather, sacred beasts. They had always existed in legends, no one had ever seen them. No one could be sure if these two mystical creatures existed in this world. However, the more it was so, the more precious and rare the mystical beasts with the bloodline of the mythical beasts were. Now, Emmy could actually sense that this little clown in front of him had the bloodline of the phoenix. Yunyang was dumbfounded. How could Dong Tianling be so lucky? Took up a few words. I made a mistake in the previous chapter. Before uploading it, I would edit it one last time, word by word. When I uploaded the last chapter, I would edit about 20 to 30 places on average. After the last chapter was edited, I copied it and uploaded it. Somehow, the words that had been edited and deleted appeared as well. Everyone said that many words were repeated and many sentences were illogical. Those were all edited by me. However, I don't know why the words that had been deleted by me would appear when I copied and uploaded it. There was no other way, as long as I accessed the back end, I could edit the chapters again. However, the Qidian app had a flaw. As long as you did not uninstall and re-download the app after reading the subscribed chapters, you would not be able to see the edited chapters. You would have to re-download the app to see the edited chapters. I'm speechless about this as well. All in all, because of this mistake today, I've allowed everyone to see one of my working processes. It's true, I still don't understand how this could happen. The experts in the group helped me research for a long time and came to a conclusion: you're stupid. I'm so miserable. Chapter 3:15. Phoenix Bloodline. Therefore, when Yunyang looked at the little thing again, he felt that the little fellow's hideous appearance was so pleasing to the eye. At least, it was handsome and had a distinct bone structure. Yunyang could not help sighing inwardly. Humans are despicable to their very bones. When they don't like something, they don't like it no matter how much they look at it. Once they know the benefits, they'll become pleasing to the eye no matter how much they dislike it. I didn't expect that even the brilliant and mighty young Master Yun would have such a reaction. I almost made a mistake. This is clearly a good thing. Dong Tianling. Yunyang called out as he stepped out of the door. Dong Tianling came over eagerly. Boss? What can I do for you? This little brother will definitely be at your beck and call without any hesitation. It's like this. Although Yunyang was reluctant, this was still Dong Tianling's. Let me tell you something. This bird of yours is very unusual. I suggest that you raise him well. The corners of Dong Tianling's lips twitched as he looked at the phantom vulture. He shook his head vigorously. No, 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 don't. I would only want it if I was sick. The phantom vulture. Yunyang frowned. This bird is not a phantom vulture. Only a ghost would believe that. Which part of him did not look like a phantom vulture? Boss. Dong Tianling was in a bad mood. You don't have to trick me like this, do you? If I really bring it home, won't I be beaten to death immediately? I really don't want to. I hate it just by looking at it. Dong Tianling gritted his teeth, determined not to give in. Yunyang sighed and whispered into Dong Tianling's ear, this bird has the bloodline of the phoenix. Dong Tianling looked at the phantom vulture, then at Yunyang, dumbfounded. Boss, you're really going all out in order to deceive me. This damn thing. Phoenix bloodline? He. I almost believed it. Anyway, I don't want it. Boss, if you really don't want it, just throw it away. Dong Tianling looked disgusted. Forget about the phoenix's bloodline, even if it was a phoenix. I wouldn't want it. Yunyang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Am I that untrustworthy? Afraid that Yunyang would try to persuade him again, Dong Tianling quickly said, Boss, I'm leaving. Before Yunyang could speak, Dong Tianling had already disappeared with a swoosh. His speed was incomparably fast, as if there was an evil spirit chasing after him. Walking out of the small yard, Dong Tianling wiped off his cold sweat, still fearful. The bloodline of the phoenix. Boss, I almost believed you if you didn't mention the bloodline of the phoenix. What a trap. I almost believed you. Yun Yang was dumbfounded. Not even the phoenix bloodline? Fine, if you don't want it, I want it. Yun Yang held the little fellow and murmured, since you're not a phantom vulture and you still have that bloodline. Dong Tianling doesn't want you anymore, you can only follow your master from now on. The little fellow's skinny legs stood in Yun Yang's palm, looking indifferent. Since you're following me, I need to give you a name. The more Yun Yang looked at the little fellow, the more he liked him. He said gently, what name should I give you? Or the white series? Black and white? The little creature bounced on Yun Yang's hand, tilting its head and chirping twice. No, there are already too many whiteys. Besides, you only have a few white lines. It's too much to call you whiteys. Especially when you're so ugly and your voice is like a squeaky squeaky. It has nothing to do with whiteys. How about this, you can choose one of the two names. Either Chao Chu or Gigi. Yun Yang passed the choice to the little creature. How could the little creature understand what he was saying? It looked at Yun Yang for a while with its head tilted, feeling the warmth of Yun Yang's palm. It felt comfortable all over and jumped twice on Yun Yang's hand happily. You jumped twice. Obviously, you like the second name very much. This master will respect your choice. Your name from now on will be Gigi. Yun Yang made the final decision. The little creature raised its head happily and chirped twice. Looks like you really like it. Yun Yang decided. From then on, the little thing had a name that could make people feel dizzy. According to the usual writing style of a novel, it would be written, from then on, until tens of thousands of years later, so-and-so's mighty so-and-so is still regretting it, because, this very unsightly name is, it can be said that a single misstep brings everlasting regret. However, I don't want to write it that way. Since he had adopted this little creature, of course, he had to feed it. Yun Yang brought some leaves first, but the little creature shook its head in disdain and refused to eat it. Steamed buns? Not eating. Noodles, not eating. Meat? Even more disdainful. It was only when Yun Yang took out a bunch of fruits and sent it over tentatively that the little thing's eyes shone. It hopped onto the fruit reluctantly and started munching on it, its mouth full of juice. Looks like it really isn't a phantom vulture. Yun Yang was relieved. A phantom vulture would not eat fruits. However, he frowned immediately. If this creature only eats fruits, then, what fruit supply can there be in this winter? This is a little tricky. This was the truth. It was already winter, even some wealthy families would rarely have fruits to eat. However, this little creature was obviously not interested in other food, it was very disdainful. What should he do? Now that it had suddenly snowed, there were probably a few peaches, pears, and apples left at home. What would he do when they were finished? Especially when the appetite of a mystical beast was unusually large. However, the little creature did not care about this. Having eaten and drunk its fill, it staggered 2 steps and climbed up Yun Yang's trousers, crawling into Yun Yang's pocket on its own. At this moment, Whitey 4 was sleeping inside. Naturally, it meowed in dissatisfaction at this uninvited guest, but the little fellow ignored it and crawled inside. It used its butt to push Whitey 4 away a little, then buried its head in its crotch and curled into a small ball of fur, falling asleep just like that. Whitey 4 glared at the little creature that had appeared out of nowhere, its whiskers quivering. It was obviously about to erupt in anger. After all, it was a 9th-level pinnacle mystical beast. How could the dignity of a high-level mystical beast be offended? In spite of this, Whitey 4 leaped out of Yun Yang's pocket with a swoosh, meowing incessantly as if it had been greatly frightened. Her big, colorful eyes were filled with lingering fear. "Oh my God, Master, why did you keep this thing in? It's so scary." Yun Yang looked at the 2 apple skins and 2 peach cores in his hands. Other than being dumbfounded, he was speechless. This little creature, including its fluffy fur, was not even as big as an apple. It had only taken a moment to finish 2 big apples and 2 peaches that were even bigger than apples. That was food that was 5 to 6 times more than its body mass. This, even if it was a mystical beast with a huge appetite, was it not? With such a small size, there should be a limit no matter how big its stomach was. How could its stomach and appetite not match at all? Where did it go? Could it be that this little creature's stomach was actually connected to some ocean? Could he actually afford to feed a creature with such an appetite? This was a problem. Yun Yang was deeply doubtful about this. However, Yun Yang recalled his gluttonous appetite from some time ago. It seemed like it had disappeared after a large amount of food. For a moment, he felt like he was in the same boat with this little creature. "I was abandoned too, you were abandoned too. However, you're worse off than me. You've been abandoned twice." Yun Yang sighed. "Let's live a good life together from now on," sigh. The little creature was snoring away with its butt in the air. It did not hear Yun Yang's sentiments at all, so naturally, it did not have any feelings to speak of. When he saw Dong Tianlong again, Yun Yang's gaze was exceptionally complicated, so was his emotions. This guy seemed to be a lucky general. Although this guy didn't know or recognize anything, he was still able to bring all these things back. He did not even want a good person. Cough, cough. Yun Yang said, "Leng Leng." Dong Tianlong jumped up reflexively. "Boss, I really don't want it. Please don't shove it into me." Yun Yang was exasperated. "It's not this, it's something else." Dong Tianlong perked up and said with a fawning smile, "Boss, what orders do you have? Do you want me to drug the mystical beasts from the 3 families? Yun Yang was at a loss for words. "You have to change the direction of your thinking in the future. It won't do if you keep acting like this." Yun Yang commented honestly, it was also a sincere warning. After all, he had taken someone else's great opportunity. Although Yun Yang did not have much of a conscience, he still had a little bit of it. "Boss, you don't know." Dong Tianlong flipped his hair and put on a dashing look as he said, "I'm a tiny leaf that crosses the river. I'm well aware of this." A tiny leaf crossing the river? Yun Yang was puzzled. "What do you mean?" "He's relying on the force of the waves." A voice came from the side as Chiu Yun-san walked out with an annoyed expression. "Dong Tianlong, this bastard, actually wants to drug our mystical beasts." "What a bastard! More importantly, this fellow is really capable of doing it." "Right." Yun Yang said, "Yun-san, do you still remember the bet between you and me Kongchuan?" Chiu Yun-san looked miserable at once as he said pitifully, "Boss, you just have to rub it in." Sigh, the bet with me Kongchuan back then was related to the mystical spiritual medicine, luminary paste. It was the divine medicine that the 4 noble young masters had been yearning for. Now that Mi Kongchuan had confirmed that it was over, it was even more impossible for him to get his hands on it. It was also because of this that Chiu Yun-san had always been a laughing stock among his brothers. Now that Yun Yang had mentioned it, it was obvious that he was rubbing salt into the wound that had yet to heal. That feeling was indescribable. If Dong Tianlong and the others had mentioned it, Chiu Yun-san might have fought them right away. However, he dared not make a single move against Yun Yang, gritting his teeth and enduring it. Dong Tianlong, who was standing at the side, laughed gloatingly. "What do you mean by rub it in? Do you think I'm you?" "Of course, I have a reason to mention it. I've brought it back for all of you." Yunyang said, "Here." As he spoke, he took out 4 portions of luminary paste that he had obtained from Mi Kongquan. Yunyang wanted to make it up to them after receiving such a huge benefit. It was then that he remembered the luminary paste. Qiu Yunsan's eyes shone brightly at once. Dong Tianlong cursed as well, his eyes bulging. Chapter 316. Chun Wanfeng and Xia Bingchuan had popped out of nowhere as well. Their 4 pairs of eyes were glowing with an eerie green glow as they stared at the luminary paste in Yunyang's hands. This was found among Mi Kongquan's belongings. "I have connections in the palace. It's a dead man's business, it doesn't cost me anything." Yunyang gave a simple explanation. However, how could Dong Tianlong and the others listen to his explanation? Who would care where this thing came from? As long as the genuine item was right before their eyes and they could get their hands on it, was everything else important? They were already scratching their ears and cheeks in impatience. This was the legendary item of fantasy that could make a man invincible. "The man I've been dreaming of, ha 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 ha, mine!" Qiu Yunsan shouted and rushed forward. Then, his body flew out. It was at the same time he charged forward that Dong Tianlong, Chun Wanfeng and Xia Bingchuan gave a kick at the same time without anyone noticing. At this moment, the 3 popinjays had unleashed the highest realm of their martial skills. This kick came and went without a trace, and it was miraculous beyond compare. Just as Qiu Yunsan finished his declaration, he was kicked by 3 large feet at the same time and was flung out like a gold ingot. His buttocks landed on the ground with a groan in his throat. "Boss, mine." Chun Wanfeng said. "Boss, mine." Xia Bingchuan said. "Boss, give me one, don't give it to Qiu Yunsan. He can't do it, it'll be a waste if he eats it." Dong Tianlong said. "Boss." Qiu Yunsan dashed back at the speed of light. "Don't listen to Dong Tianlong. This bastard really doesn't know anything other than destroying the unity. He doesn't listen to a single word." Yunyang shook his head in amusement. "What are you guys fighting for? There are 4 portions here. Isn't it just right for each of you?" The 4 of them raised their heads and looked at Yunyang in shock. "Boss, don't you want it?" Yunyang did not know whether to laugh or cry. So this was the purpose of these 4 fellows' competition. 4 portions of luminary paste to be shared among 5 people. Of course, one of them would not have it. Yunyang's portion had always been fixed among the 4 of them. If he did not take it out, no one would have it. As for the other 4, one of them had to miss. The 4 of them were calculating in their hearts. Since there has to be one person who can't get it, that person definitely can't be me. It was fortunate that the 4 of them had developed a bond after so many years and that they were in Yunyang's house. Otherwise, with these fellows' tempers, they might have stirred up trouble. "Forget about me." Yunyang smiled. "I don't have such a need for now. On the other hand, the few of you are in a terrible deficit. Let's focus on you first." "Thank you, boss. Thank you for giving me a new lease of life, boss." The 4 of them spoke in unison, and all of them beamed with delight. They were complacent and high-spirited. As for what Yunyang had said about the few of them having a huge deficit, the few of them did not take it to heart. So what if I have a huge deficit? One must know that there is a poem that says, "Youth is not wasted. Who can you find when you are young?" The beauty was like a flower for a few years, waiting for her white hair to turn into empty tears. Besides, what's the big deal about being scolded a few times? As long as I get my hands on this thing, I'll be awesome in the future. That was the legendary golden spear does not fall. The highest state of being a man. It looked like a new page of legend in the Wind-Moon realm would have to be written by the few of us. Holding the luminary paste of their dreams, the 4 brothers who had realized their dreams were grinning so widely that their eyes could not be seen. To the four popinjays, even the mystical beast offspring's upgrade that they had been longing for was far less important than this. Qiu Yunsan took deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. He tried his best to suppress his surging emotions, trying his best to be steady, calm, and dignified. Then, he took a look at the luminary paste and swallowed it without even taking a sip of the water. He swallowed it in one go, but it seemed to be blocked once it entered his mouth. The luminary paste was a paste after all and had a certain amount of weight. It was difficult for it to go with the flow. Eldest young Master Qiu stretched his neck and tried his best to swallow it, his handsome face flushed. Drink some water quickly. You'll be fine once it's smooth. An expert from the Qiu family quickly brought over a bowl of water. Step by step. Qiu Yunsan waved his hands forcefully and said with difficulty, holding it in will dilute the medicinal effect. Everyone was instantly dumbfounded. Qiu Yunsan had really gone all out for this legendary medicinal effect. Did he not know that choking someone to death could also choke them to death? The people from the other three families sighed in relief. It was fortunate that their young masters were not as embarrassing as Qiu Yunsan. This was so embarrassing that it could even reach one's grandmother's house. Everyone who was thinking about this was speechless as they turned to look. Chen Wanfeng, Dong Tianlong, and Xia Bingchuan were stretching their necks as well, their eyes rolling back as they tried their best to swallow something. Their appearance was a direct copy of Qiu Yunsan's, even worse than Qiu Yunsan. After all, Qiu Yunsan's appearance was the best among the four of them. In comparison, he had actually won. Looks could really show off one's superiority at any time and place, even at this moment. A few guards hurried over and tried their best to pat the backs of the three noble young masters to soothe their breathing. After all, looking at their postures, they might really die from suffocation. Yun Yang was not only covered in goosebumps, but goosebumps were all over the floor. I say, this matter, is it really that important? No matter what, the four of you are the direct descendants of a family with identity, position, and standpoint, all right? Is it really all right to throw away your integrity just for a little benefit of the lower half of your bodies? Yun Yang could not understand everything that was happening. Dong Tianlong and the other three were rolling their eyes as they looked at Yun Yang, chuckling. The chuckle was actually filled with a condescending tone. It was like an experienced and knowledgeable city dweller looking at a country bumpkin who came from the incomparably rural countryside. Ignorant, no common sense, insensible, how contemptuous. The four of them felt an overwhelming sense of superiority at the same time. After all, since they had first met Yun Yang, the four of them had been treated as his lackeys. Now that they could actually gain the upper hand over Yun Yang, all four of them at the same time, how could they not be elated and high-spirited? It was already an act of restraint not to be arrogant and domineering. Dong Tianlong finally let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "There are some things that you won't know if you haven't experienced it, boss." Yes, you haven't experienced it. Of course, a beginner wouldn't understand it. Actually, let me tell you, he frowned and racked his brain for a long time before coming up with a relatively suitable metaphor. How much a woman values her appearance, how much a man values this. Do you understand now? Yun Yang was dumbfounded. I don't. Ha ha ha. Dong Tianlong and the other three men chuckled meaningfully. Boss, you're still young, but you'll understand in the future. Yun Yang felt that he was not feeling well. F***ck, are you fellows looking for a beating? How dare you speak to your father in such a condescending tone? Do you believe that your father will turn your mystical beasts into food at any moment? Yun Yang's gaze was exceptionally hostile. He was not completely unaware of the underlying meaning of the four men's words. Even if he had never seen a pig run or seen a pig being slaughtered, it had been mentioned in novels after all. What really annoyed Yun Yang was that he really was a beginner, he really did not have the experience of a man like the four men. He actually could not refute them. At least in this aspect, he really could not compare to the 4 popinjays. The rumored leader of Yutong's popinjays did not live up to his name. It was hard to live up to his reputation, there was only an empty title beneath it. This was something that Yunyang could not tolerate and could not let go of. Is it a sin to be a beginner? What's the big deal if I don't experience it? Still, I've secretly kept one for myself. I'll see if I can use it in the future, but this is a matter of pride, I can't say it. The 4 of them suddenly felt that they had really gotten carried away. How could it be so easy to take advantage of their boss? Thinking about it, they chuckled sheepishly. Boss is wise and mighty. Whether it's now or in the future, he won't be able to use this thing. Haven't the few of us already lost it? Sigh, there's nothing we can do. These 4 fellows were experts at playing along with the wind, so they quickly made themselves sound more pitiful to redeem themselves. Yunyang snorted sarcastically but did not argue with them. After all, if he were to argue about this matter, he would only lower himself further. Right, Dong Tianlong, your family hasn't gotten any mystical beast babies yet. You've finally gotten a phantom vulture and you've given it to me, Dong Tianlong blinked. Given it to you? When did I give it to you? Didn't I just throw it away? How can that thing be given away? Giving it to someone would be offending them. Is boss implying that I've offended him because I didn't want it? Dong Tianlong squinted his eyes and said, it's all because boss is willing to do me the honor. Boss is wise and mighty, benefiting the world and the people. Those who want to give something to boss can line up from Tiantang City all the way to the borderless sea. Boss won't even accept it when others want to give it to him. Only this little brother can still have some face with boss. I feel honored, honored. Qiu Yunsan and the other 2 turned around, feeling an itch in their throats. They truly wanted to retch a few times to vent the disgust in their hearts. They were no strangers to bootlicking, each of them was an expert at it. However, it was the first time they had seen someone who could do it so shamelessly and without limits. Dong Tianlong's integrity was not as simple as just dropping to the bottom, it was completely gone. How could something like a phantom vulture be considered a gift? This was obviously something that was meant to disgust people. Giving such a thing to someone was the best way to start a feud, okay? As they thought about it, the 3 of them were suddenly stunned. Gift? Phantom vulture? Could it be that boss really meant that he wanted to keep the phantom vulture? Boss, you're not thinking of keeping that thing, are you? Qiu Yunsan's eyes widened as he looked at Yunyang in horror. Boss, this can't be kept. Chapter 317. Chun Wanfeng chimed in as well, boss, we all know that you're a magnanimous and forgiving man, but you don't have to put yourself down for Dong Tianlong's sake. We all know what the phantom vulture is like. Xia Bingchuan chimed in as well, that's right, Yunyang nodded, his smile exceptionally gentle. You've all misunderstood me. I really want to raise it and see if I can train it to eat other things as it grows, if I can change its inherent habits. If I can tame it in the end. After all, the phantom vulture is a flying mystical beast, its combat power is rather impressive and its overall quality is decent. As long as there's no need to worry about the corpse poison, everything else will be fine. He pointed at his pocket and said, look, I've fed this little fellow an apple just now. It's asleep now after eating its fill, there's no rotting smell coming from it at all. It's enough to prove that my deduction might be true. The 4 noble young masters looked at the phantom vulture that had curled up into a ball in Yunyang's pocket, their mouths hanging wide open. How could this work? Wasn't this too immediate and obvious? I've even given it a nice name, Gigi. Yunyang chuckled. The 4 young masters felt like they had been struck by lightning. The name was really, well chosen. Boss is indeed brilliant, intelligent, far-sighted, and cunning. Dong Tianlong exclaimed in admiration, Boss actually has the ability to foresee the future, knowing that we're eating this luminary paste today for, cough, cough. Heh, heh, you've actually named it beforehand. Boss's unfathomable wisdom is truly admirable. Xiao Yun-san and the others felt like they were in a bad mood. What do you want us to say when you're King sucking up? Is your flattery a compliment or a demeaning one? That's right, boss is brilliant. The three of them looked like they were in pain. Forget it, with Dong Tianling as an example, we can forget about our so-called integrity. Yun Yang glanced at the four fellows in disdain and said, I've never seen people as shameless as the four of you. The four of them immediately had miserable expressions on their faces. They had unspeakable bitterness. Right, where was I? Yun Yang knocked on his head. Boss, you just said that you've given it a name called Gigi. It's a good name. You'll be able to enter the realm of love and blend in with the scenery. Xia Bingchuan replied enthusiastically. His words were filled with flattery, and he even had an extremely wretched expression on his face. Yun Yang glared at him and said, but this way, Dong Tianling, you won't have mystical beast cubs to nurture anymore. Your family didn't send you any new cubs, did they? But since I've accepted your gift, I can't let you suffer a loss. How about this? Before his words echoed in the air, Yun Yang's hand shook and a sword appeared in it. This was a sword that looked like a belt. It was soft like a snake. With a casual shake of the hand, it swayed back and forth in the air. You can have this sword. Yun Yang said, take it as your compensation or a gift in return for the little fellow you gave me. In any case, this sword is yours. I obtained this treasured sword, Spirited Krite. It's not a bad choice to use it as a belt when I'm not using it. Without the need for Yun Yang's introduction, the three great young masters, other than Dong Tianling, stared at the sword in Dong Tianling's hand in unison. As for the experts of the four noble families who had been looking up at the sky and could not bear to listen to these people's conversation, they turned their heads abruptly and stared at the sword in Dong Tianling's hand with burning gazes. As for Dong Tianling himself, he was dumbstruck. His mind was blank as he held the treasured sword, Spirited Krite. Spirited Krite? Chun Wanfeng roared, almost going mad with envy and jealousy. Boss, is this the legendary treasured sword, Spirited Krite? You gave it to him just like that? To Dong Tianling? It was not only Chun Wanfeng who had lost his composure. Xia Bingchuan and Qiu Wanfeng looked like they were about to break down as well. Why not me? Why not me? Just him, Dong Tianling. How does he deserve the treasured sword, Spirited Krite? Boss, you're wasting God's gift by doing this. You're insulting this godly weapon. The three noble young masters were heartbroken. The treasured sword, Spirited Krite, is said to be the personal weapon of the sword devil, Linghu Buchong, 3,500 years ago. The main material of this sword is the celestial metal, lacerated meteorite silver. Other than its sharpness and ability to cut through iron like mud, it also has the special effect of lacerating one's fingers and being extremely flexible. When it's used, it's indestructible with a shake of the wind. When not in use, it can be tucked around the waist as a belt. It's convenient to carry around and can appear and disappear unpredictably. It's truly an unparalleled weapon for killing and robbing. A ninth peak expert from the Dong family looked at the sword in Dong Tianling's hand and shook his head in glee. This sword has long become a legend of Tianxuan's famed sword. It's also one of the top 10 famed swords recognized by countless swordsmen in Tianxian continent for the past 10,000 years. It's been at least 3,000 years since the last time this sword appeared. Ever since Linghu Buchong retired from the martial arts world and disappeared without a trace, there's no news of this sword. I didn't expect it to appear now and belong to my young master. What a great sword! This sword and my young master are a match made in heaven. Young Master Yun really knows how to read people and is a man of noble character and unquestionable integrity. Both of them are the same. Chun Wanfeng and the other two young masters grew even more indignant as they rebuked, "Nonsense! Nonsense! Dong Tianlong can only be matched with a despicable person. How can he be worthy of such a good sword?" The sudden turn of events and the stimulation was too overwhelming. In a moment of desperation, the imbalance in their hearts was like a tsunami, causing the three of them to toss the basic respect they had for their elders to the back of their minds. "The three of you are the ones who are narrow-minded and sneaky. It's completely undisguised envy, jealousy, and hatred. But heaven blesses the kind. This sword is mine anyway, what can you do about it?" Dong Tianlong kept the sword in his hand and gripped it tightly, beaming like a blooming chrysanthemum. "Thank you, boss, for bestowing this sword upon me." Yun Yang replied calmly, "As long as you don't let this sword down, it'll be the greatest gratitude you can give me." This sword had its origins. It was found among He Hunqing's belongings. To most people, this sword was an unparalleled weapon, but to Yun Yang, who already possessed the divine edge, this sword was not much stronger than a chicken rib. After all, there was no comparison between it and the divine edge, so he really did not take it to heart. Besides, he had a powerful companion like Emmy, so he could have as many swords as he wanted. Even weapons that were much better than the spirited cow were within his reach and had been with him since a long time ago. Naturally, he did not treasure them at all, nor did he care about the reputation of the sword. He had simply given it away, not taking it seriously at all. Furthermore, he could use this sword to end the ill-fated relationship between Dong Tianlong and the little fellow. No matter how he looked at it, it was worth it. However, this was a genuine and worthwhile transaction, causing the other three young masters to look at Yun Yang with green eyes. "Boss, that was obviously casting pearls before swine." The three of them could only feel darkness before their eyes, feeling hopeless. Such a divine weapon, how could it be given to Dong Tianlong for no reason? Even if it was plunged into a cesspool, we wouldn't feel so bad. The resentful gazes of the three noble young masters made Yun Yang uncomfortable. All right, let's start training the mystical beasts now. All of you are idle all day, I still have a lot of things to do," Yun Yang said. Dong Tianlong unsheathed the treasured sword, spirited Krite, waving it casually in his hand. The moment his mystical chi was infused into the treasured sword, the sword straightened with a clang, gleaming with a cold gleam. Dong Tianlong was delighted, retracting his mystical chi once more. The sword softened again, like a real snake. When you don't use mystical chi, can't you use it as a whip? What a treasure! Dong Tianlong pretended to be surprised. It seems like it can be used as a saber. It can be used as a stick, f*ck it can actually, Dong Tianlong waved the sword in a disorderly manner. The three young masters gritted their teeth, wishing they could rush forward and kill him for his treasure. "Young master, don't show off your wealth, lest others be wary of you," an expert from the Dong family reminded him. "Ha ha ha. Yes. You must be wary of despicable people." Dong Tianlong readily accepted the advice, immediately pulling out the belt that was originally around his waist and tossing it aside, abandoning it like a pair of worn-out shoes. With a click, he had already wrapped the treasured sword, spirited Krite, around his waist. The position of the treasured sword's hilt could be used as a belt buckle, the flood dragon's head brimming with vigor. Dong Tianlong paced back and forth a few times with his hands behind his back, his belly bulging as he said proudly, "Do I have the elegance of a generation sword demon? Do I have the rebirth of a sword demon?" Everyone's eyebrows twitched. "You really don't have the elegance of a generation's sword demon. However, when it comes to the elegance of a generation's sword demon, you really do. Don't show off your wealth, what an insightful view." Dong Tianlong tied the belt on the outside, even his long robe. He patted the hilt of the sword and said with a smile, "Especially in front of these three fellows, I can't show off my good stuff. Who knows who's the despicable one?" What if they're being coveted? He caressed the treasured sword, spirited Krite, fondly, and his eyes disappeared from his grin. They won't stop at coveting it. They'll really snatch it. It's better to nip it in the bud than to nip it in the bud. Everyone was exasperated. You're already showing off so much, isn't this showing off? Just by looking at your actions, it's only right that they rob you. Your father won't believe you. You're F*king showing off. Xiao Yunsan said indignantly, do you want to strip off your clothes and wrap this sword around your little B*tch to show off? Dong Tianling turned a deaf ear to him as he paced back and forth in front of Chun Wanfeng and the other two in glee. Spirited Krite's hilt shone brightly under the sunlight, dazzling the trio. This is great. So comfortable. I like it so much. Waha. It suits me so well, ao. This is my sword, my sword, my sword. La 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 la. Dong Tianling wiggled his buttocks as he swayed back and forth in front of Chun Wanfeng and the other two coquettishly. So F*king despicable. Chapter 318. The three of them fiercely spat out a mouthful of saliva and turned their heads away with all their might. However, they had used too much force and twisted their necks out. With a crack, they nearly broke their necks. Turning their heads, they looked at Yunyang sadly, their heads hung low in dejection. This was too much of a blow, boss. This was too much of a difference in treatment. Yunyang looked up at the sky, thinking to himself, how would you fellows know what Dong Tianling has lost for this sword? If you knew, you would feel very balanced. But I can't tell you. It's true that heaven blesses the kind, but those who don't. Dong Tianling doesn't have a mystical beast cub now. Do you all have none? Bring them out quickly. I haven't taken a close look yet. Yunyang urged anxiously, but he was actually trying to divert his attention. The three young masters were dejected. After this turn of events, the excitement and joy he felt from obtaining the luminary paste had long since vanished without a trace. The three of them then looked at their injured little mystical beast cub, and all of them had the urge to strangle it to death. It was this little thing that didn't live up to expectations, it couldn't enter the eyes of the boss, it made me lose the chance to obtain a matchless famous sword, I hate it. The next few days passed. After the residence of Yun was overcrowded, it changed again, turning the entire place into a zoo. Whitey Big Whitey, Whitey 2, Whitey 3, Whitey 4, Whitey 5, and Gigi. These were Yun Yang's direct subordinates. As for the three-eye boar, 10,000 catty bear, black-winged tiger cub, these outsiders had officially joined the family. The three-eye boar was named Hero by Xiao Yunsan. The 10,000 catty bear was naturally named Hero by Xia Bingchuan. The black-winged tiger was named King by Chun Wanfeng. These three names. Forget black-winged tiger. However, Hero and Hero were paired with the three-eye boar and the 10,000 catty bear. The name made Yun Yang's balls twitch a little. How dare you all? Can't you all be a little more restrained? 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 7 days, Yun Yang basically did not step out of his house. He was completely focused on being a beast tamer, paying no attention to what was happening outside of his house. Outside, there were always 2 pairs of eyes watching the residence of Yun. The young master and the black-robed elder had been watching this place for 4 days. It did not take them much effort to find out that Ji Lingxi had once interacted with this young master of the residence of Yun and that it was the only place she had ever stayed. Therefore, to the target, Tiantang City, this was the most suspicious place. However, even after observing for 4 days, the master and servant did not discover any abnormalities. If Yun Yang was the one who had saved the 2 girls previously, or if he was related to Supreme Wind and had asked him to save the 2 girls, he should not be so calm. To be so calm, either Yun Yang did not know about the two girls at all, or he was so mentally strong that he did not reveal any flaws. As for the third possibility, which was that he had something to rely on and didn't take him seriously at all, this possibility was directly ignored by the young master. After a few days of observation, the young lord came to a few conclusions. Firstly, Yun Yang was a person with mediocre abilities, perhaps an ant. Secondly, there were no signs of a surpassing expert in the residence of Yun. The few people on the surface had average abilities as well. No matter what the relationship between Supreme Wind and Yun Yang was, he was either not in the residence of Yun or he was just a silver spear tip that looked strong in appearance. Although the elite experts of the four noble families had officially entered the residence of Yun, the young master and servant's abilities were almost on par with Ling Xiaozui's level. The experts of the four families were only slightly stronger ants to him. Having come to such a conclusion, the young master and servant naturally had no more scruples. Their actions were even more brazen, no longer concealing themselves. Young master, this young master Yun is truly a rare genius in terms of talent alone, the black-robed elder said in a low voice. I've noticed this since a long time ago. The young lord nodded and said, but he only has a rare talent. His physique is too mixed and the cultivation method he's learning isn't right at all. Even though he has some achievements now, he's destined to never reach the pinnacle in this lifetime. The black-robed elder nodded and said, it's really a pity. The innate golden jade body is rare even where we come from. He's the perfect talent to cultivate the way of the sword. Why did he choose the cultivation method that isn't right at all? Not only that, his aptitude is so mixed. This can be considered an anomaly. The young lord smiled and said, his talent allows him to cultivate very quickly in the early stages and there's little difficulty in breaking through the bottleneck. However, once he reaches the heaven realm, his progress will slow down. Those who have been surpassed by him will continue to surpass him at that time as long as they have the opportunity. This so-called genius who has gone astray from the beginning of his cultivation will either fall at this time or be unable to recover from this setback. How can he have a future? So, the young lord concluded, this young master Yun may look high-spirited and ostentatious now, but his future is still bleak. This is the scope of a cultivator's knowledge and experience. The lower realm is limited in their vision and will not pay special attention to the compatibility between their foundation and the cultivation method they cultivate. It can't be helped. The black-robed elder said, but we've been observing for 4 whole days and there seems to be nothing unusual in this residence of Yun. Could this be strange? The young lord said faintly, it's normal for there to be no abnormalities at the moment. If there were, wouldn't it be too easy for us to find out? That would be strange. The black-robed elder said, yes, you're right, young master. Actually, it's not necessarily that there's nothing unusual. There are so many mystical beasts gathered here, and those mystical beast cubs obviously belong to the 4 noble families. I'm afraid there's more to this than meets the eye. The young lord looked at the residence of Yun from afar and said faintly, could it be that this young master Yun is actually a beast tamer? The black-robed elder said, the thinking of the people in the lower realm is different from ours. Their cultivation path is narrow and they don't know how to walk the road ahead. Even if young master Yun is a beast tamer, it's not that surprising. Also, the feng shui of this residence of Yun is superb. The young lord said, the layout of the houses here is ingenious and famous. Just based on the feng shui of this place, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth can be gathered, the young lord said, this can be understood just by looking at the flora and fauna in this place. Combining these points, this young master Yun's family background is probably not as simple as a marquis of the imperial court. A solemn look of contemplation flashed across the young lord's eyes. Think of a way to get close to him. On the other side, Yun Yang closed his eyes and channeled spiritual qi to confirm the current situation of the 3 mystical beasts, preparing to officially start the training process. These 3 mystical beast cubs had been left to roam in his residence for 7 days. Although it was not obvious to humans during these 7 days, the mystical beasts were very sensitive to the changes in the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The cubs had gone from being sick and lethargic in the beginning to being lively and scurrying about. Furthermore, with Yun Yang's gradual training, these little fellows were showing signs of becoming enlightened and wiser. How long had it been? Faced with such a miraculous situation, the experts of the 4 noble families were dumbfounded, almost unable to believe what they were seeing. It was only now that they fully acknowledged the words of the 4 noble young masters. It seemed that this young master Yun was not an ordinary person. The 3-eyed boar's plump body was rolling and leaping with all its might, scurrying back and forth, but it came over immediately with Yun Yang's call. It was extremely obedient. There was also the 10,000 catty bear, supporting its cumbersome body with its 2 thick legs, looking charmingly naive, but it was also executing Yun Yang's orders meticulously. The black-winged tiger was thought to be the most unsociable and different from other flying mystical beasts, but it was as obedient as Yun Yang. Such an instantaneous training method was unheard of and unseen. It was like a miracle. Hero. Come, roll. Hero. Come, walk upright for me to see. King. Turn around. The experts had observed Yun Yang closely for the past few days and confirmed that the strange hand gestures, incantations, and actions he had displayed were still unknown, but they were all effective against mystical beasts. When he was training the 3 mystical beasts, it was obvious that he was improving the beasts' innate weaknesses. Given time, the future of the mystical beast cubs would be bright. The 3-eyed boar and the 10,000 catty bear were clumsy, so he had trained them to run and move frequently, focusing on cultivating their agility. As for the black-winged tiger, it was agile, so he focused on cultivating its lethality and training its patience. Basically, the expected direction of each step was very clear, and it could be seen at a glance. Other than that, there was also a mysterious and inexplicable aura around Yun Yang that was passively urging the mystical beasts to improve and be obedient, changing their innate habits bit by bit. It was also this point that was the most inconceivable to everyone. However, Yun Yang had really done it, and he had done it right in front of them. The group thought about it and felt relieved. If Yun Yang did not have such a skill, he would not have boasted that day. It was impressive enough that he could train the mystical beasts, but it would be futile if he said that he did not have a way to deal with the mystical beasts. Yun Yang's claim of being able to transform the mystical beasts and break through the shackles of their innate talents was still an unreachable distance, but there was already hope. It was no longer unreachable. It was because of this reason that the experts of the 4 noble families had changed their attitudes. From skepticism and suspicion, their gazes had turned into admiration, and even worship. If this Xian beast cub could really advance, then wouldn't the clan's hope start from here? In their eyes, Yun Yang was now an omnipotent immortal. Everyone was brimming with hope and energy. As long as they completed this, it would be a great merit when they returned to their families. Chapter 319. However, the guards were well aware of this. No matter how much they contributed, they had to wait until they returned home. Now, however, before this matter was completed, there was no need to be careful. They had to protect their young master, the mystical beasts, and especially young Master Yun himself. However, during the training process, everyone also felt that something was not right. The mystical beasts in the residence of Yun seemed to be divided into different levels. No, it should be said that the difference between the levels of the mystical beasts was clear and obvious. For example, the phantom vulture that had just arrived was obviously ostracized. The lightning cats ignored it, staying far away from it as if they were afraid of being stained by the stench. On this point, everyone expressed their understanding. They completely understood. After all, the phantom vulture was hated by almost all living creatures. Everyone knew this. Everyone shared the same thought. Therefore, it was completely understandable that the phantom vulture had sought out its master, Yun Yang, for protection. It was closer to young Master Yun, so it followed him all the time. After all, Yun Yang seemed to be the only one who was happy to see it. However, what was up with the lightning cats? Why did they come to bully our three-eye boar and 10,000 catty bear? They even bullied the black-winged tiger. What was going on? We were all 8th level mystical beasts. Even if our true abilities were debatable, we were still 8th level mystical beasts. This bloodline could not be faked. What level were the lightning cats? Did they eat bear hearts and leopard guts? How dare they bully upper-level mystical beasts? Was this not provoking the Tai Sui? However, young Master Yun was obviously protecting his lightning cats. Once there was any conflict between the mystical beasts, young Master Yun would appear immediately and summon the lightning cats back, as if he was afraid that they would be wronged. The crowd could understand this. The lightning cats were only beginner-level mystical beasts. Even if the 10,000 catty bear, three-eye boar, and the other 3 mystical beasts were newborns, their levels were still there. As long as the superior's aura erupted, the lightning cats would not be able to withstand it. It was possible that they would be scared to death. However, they were still slightly dissatisfied with Yun Yang's attitude. It was understandable that his mystical beasts were biased, but did he have to treat the lightning cats as treasures? Wasn't he being too petty? As the group of Xian beasts interacted with each other for a long time, these lightning cats actually developed the arrogance of a direct descendant. Arrogant and full of himself. It meowed every day and pushed the three-eye pig and the 10,000 catty bear over and over again. The experts from the 4 major families were all gritting their teeth in pain. He couldn't help but feel that this matter didn't seem reliable, that something was wrong, and so on. Could it be that we have no choice but to lower our heads when we are under the eaves, so even our Xian beasts have to have this kind of awareness? Every day, the first to come out would be the unloved phantom vulture GG, followed by the lightning cats, who would line up and come out lazily. Sometimes 4 would appear, sometimes 5, but no one could tell which one was which. After all, they looked exactly the same. At most, there was a slight difference in their stature. Over time, everyone gradually got used to it. After all, as long as their mystical beasts could advance in level, nothing else would be a problem. After all, from the fact that the lightning cats dared to bully superior mystical beasts without suffering any backlash, one could see young Master Yun's training skills from the side. This itself was already very much against the natural laws of mystical beasts. Starting from the 7th day, Yun Yang called the 3 young masters to one side and taught them the art of beast taming alone. This move immediately struck the experts' worries and they could not help but feel more at ease. Young Master Yun was indeed a meticulous person, he was meticulous in his handling of this matter. Too meticulous. However, Dong Tianlong was even more idle now. This fellow had been playing around with his sword and swordsmanship for the past few days. He was having so much fun and was in high spirits. However, after Yun Yang had taught the other 3 young masters the art of beast taming, no one bothered with him anymore. The 3 young masters were already sick of his antics. Now that they had serious matters to attend to, they naturally devoted themselves to the great task of taming mystical beasts. After playing by himself for a few days, Dong Tianlong finally felt bored. After all, whether it was his antics or swordsmanship, there needed to be an audience. If he were to play alone, who was he going to show his antics to? Want to go out for a drink? Dong Tianlong called out loudly, as if he was afraid that no one could hear him. No one responded. I'll treat. I said I'll treat, who's going? I'll treat you to anything, he shouted again, this time raising his voice by a notch. Still, no one responded. I'll go alone if all of you don't want to go. Don't regret it. There won't be another chance like this if you miss this opportunity. Dong Tianlong yelled at the top of his lungs once more. Scram! The three young masters shouted in unison, joining forces to scold him. F***ck, the three of you are refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit, aren't you? Your father wishes all of you to raise your mystical beasts into phantom vultures. Dong Tianlong walked out while cursing, casually looking for a hotel to drown his sorrows in alcohol. His guards shook their heads and sighed. Finally, one of them was chosen to follow him through a rock-paper-scissors game. Yes, it was a game. Now, the loser was to follow Dong Tianlong. Who would be the winner? This bunch of bastards. Not a single one of them is willing to accompany me. Dong Tianlong gulped down the wine and ate the meat, his face still filled with anger. His eyes were slanted and his hat was askew. One of his legs was still propped up on the chair, his face and mouth covered in oil. He scolded as he ate, all of them are bad. Sooner or later, your father will teach them a lesson. The guard beside him lowered his head, rolling his eyes when he made sure that Dong Tianlong could not see him. They have important matters to attend to, all right? Do you think they're all as idle as you are? You're not going to play with your sword today, are you starting to play with your mouth? Sigh. Old fatty. Dong Tianlong's eyes began to shine as he suddenly recalled something. Young master, I'm old Pang, not old fatty. I'm not old fatty. The guard looked at his own bony figure miserably. When did you see me getting fat? Yes, old Pang. Dong Tianlong followed the advice and leaned over, lowering his voice. Think of something, get me some medicine, old Pang quivered. Medicine? What medicine? What do you want? What medicine? What for? Dong Tianlong looked at old Pang as if he was looking at an idiot. Of course, it's a tonic for their mystical beasts. Tonic? Old Pang was in a bad mood. How could you be so kind? Who would believe you? It's not the kind that's fatal, and it doesn't have to be a colorless, tasteless, rare medicine. A normal laxative will do, or an aphrodisiac will do. As long as it can make their mystical beasts in a bad state for a month. Dong Tianlong gritted his teeth. All of them are F***king ignoring me. How dare they? I'm not in a good state, but they've thought it through. Old Pang felt like he was about to faint. He was now doubting whether his luck was the lowest in this world. Otherwise, how could he have lost the rock-paper-scissors game today? Or else, someone else would have been the one sitting here instead. Tell me, how do I complete this mission? As long as it's not fatal? You're using an aphrodisiac on mystical beasts that are not even a month old? Laxative? Making them in a bad state for a month? You're obviously not going to stop until you torment them to death. If something really happens in the end, you'll be fine, but I'll definitely become the scapegoat. Most importantly, I might not be the only one who's done for, my entire family might have to pay the price. Will it work? Dong Tianlong was excited. No, this won't work. Old Pang shook his head like a rattle drum. Old Pang, do you know why you've been promoted so slowly in our family? Dong Tianlong squinted. It's because you're too timid. How big of a deal is it? How big of a deal is it? You've offended 3 noble families in one go, how big of a deal do you think it is? If this fellow in front of him was not his own young master, old Pang felt that he would definitely be enraged and beat this bastard to death before whipping his corpse for 3 days. I'll let you say I'm timid. Your father will let you see how much courage I have. Just as Dong Tianlong was cursing, he suddenly saw a young master dressed in white walking in with a black-clothed follower. Wherever he went, a fragrant breeze seemed to follow him. The young master dressed in white had an elegant demeanor, his features were elegant, his physique was tall, and his temperament was superb. One look and you could tell that he came from a high and mighty family. No matter in any aspect, he had an outstanding aura. However, Dong Tianling rolled his eyes and lowered his head to eat. Great young master Dong Tianling had always boasted that he was the natural enemy of all elegance in this world. No matter how extraordinary a person was, as long as great young master Dong Tianling saw them, he would be displeased. Why are you more handsome than me? Why are you more elegant than me? Why are you more elegant than me? It's all King pretense. If this young master were to pretend, I wouldn't be any worse than you. I just don't want to pretend, you country bumpkin. Originally, with Yun Yang's extraordinarily outstanding appearance, he should not have gotten along well with Dong Tianling. However, the world was mysterious. When both of them had first met, Yun Yang had displayed his pretentious popinjay side which had won Dong Tianling's favor. Dong Tianling had taken a liking to Yun Yang at once. Thereafter, Dong Tianling had subconsciously sensed the hidden popinjay aura in Yun Yang's words and actions. He had been more than willing to bow down to Yun Yang and call himself a little brother. However, the other elegant young masters and handsome youths were all an eyesore to Dong Tianling, no exception. However, Dong Tianling's mood was unprecedentedly low at this moment. He really did not have the mood to cause trouble for others. He decided that as long as the young master did not loiter in front of him, he would be merciful and not kill. However, if the young master were to meet him again, he would immediately smack the young master's demeanor into his buttocks. He did not want to provoke the young master, but the young master had taken the initiative to approach him. Oh! The young master in white saw Dong Tianling and his eyes shone. This young master is obviously a dragon among men. When this young brother sees you, I immediately feel a sense of regret for not having met you earlier. I wonder if this young master is interested in having a drink with me? This young brother will be the host. Old Pang's face twitched subconsciously. Brother, where did you see that my young master is a dragon among men? How dare you come up to strike up a conversation at this time? You've got guts. Look at my young master's expression when he rebukes you. Indeed. You're a wretch. Dong Tianling tilted his head and looked up. How wretched are you? Chapter 320. The young master in white was stunned. What did he mean? What did he mean? The young master in white could not be blamed for not understanding. Although Dong Tianling was speaking in human language, it was rare for a normal person to understand the meaning behind his words. At least, the young master in white did not understand. You can tell that I'm a dragon and phoenix among men? Dong Tianling continued his barrage. Where's the dragon? Where's the phoenix? Hurry up and tell me. I've always been curious about these two. I've admired them for a long time. The young master in white was dumbfounded once again. Was this fellow human? What kind of language art was he using? Regret not meeting earlier? Your feelings are too King rich. Dong Tianling pulled a long face. The young master in white glared, finally understanding what kind of person Dong Tianling was. His hands were already trembling. How could this bastard be so cheap? This young master has never seen such a cheap person in his life. However, Dong Tianling continued, have a drink with you? Who the CK do you think you are? How dare you say you want to have a drink with me? Are you the host? Do you think your father isn't rich? Do you think I'm short of your wine money? Do you think you're worthy for your father to condescend? The young master in white sucked in a deep breath, obviously unable to hold it in any longer. Anyone with some ability or background would not be able to hold it in. It was not surprising. Just as he was about to explode, Dong Tianling had already taken the initiative. He was ready to vent all the pent-up frustration that he had accumulated today on this uninvited fellow. Young Master Dong had been holding it in for 8 days. Dong Tianlong felt like he was going to explode if he did not vent it. Coincidentally, there was a fool who had come along today. How could he not make use of such a heaven-sent opportunity? Dong Tianlong sprung up and slammed the table, shouting angrily, "You country bumpkin, have you forgotten your name because you have so much money? Do you have to come out and show off? Do you think you're putting on airs because you have so much money? Do you think you can enter the upper class just because you've become weightless? You're the host? F***ck your host. Do I know you? Do you know who your father is? Don't you know I'm in a very bad mood right now? You're like AF** king dumb donkey. Didn't your family teach you the rules of Jianghu when you're outside? Do you want me to teach you how to behave?" The white-dressed man was confused again. This time, not only was he stunned, even the black-robed old man beside him was stunned. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that he, who had gracefully and elegantly invited him with a smile and a heart full of enthusiasm, would end up eating a big hot fart instead. Moreover, it was the kind that had feces mixed in it. This was truly a tragedy that was too horrible to look at. "You." The white-robed young master's lips trembled. "What about you? You don't know how to speak now? If you don't know how to speak, then go home and learn. You can't even speak clearly, yet you still want to pretend? Don't you think you're ridiculous? Wasn't that shameful? Do you still have any of that?" Dong Tianlong's aura was unstoppable, his demeanor soaring to the heavens. "Me?" The white-dressed young master's face had already turned blue. "What about me?" Dong Tianlong rolled his eyes. "Are you F***king having a seizure? You won't die from anger, will you? Are you sure you won't die from anger? Won't you? Won't you? I'll continue to scold you if you don't. Look at you. You're stammering and you can't even speak clearly. You look like you're not a good person at a glance. Are you a rapist? Are you a rapist? The rapist case in Tiantang City a few days ago was committed by you, wasn't it? You scum. If you don't speak, I'll take it as an admission. You wicked rapist. Today, I'm going to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and rid the people of this evil." Dong Tianlong hollered, "Old Pang." Old Pang lifted his head in horror, his face pale and pale. How did he become a rapist after just a few words? Old Pang, really can't keep up with our young master's train of thought. Dong Tianlong shouted, "What are you waiting for? Take down this rapist and send him to the magistrate for punishment. I didn't expect to solve such a huge case when I'm out in plain clothes today. You wicked rapist. You're called Verger Glider, right? Am I right? Isn't it Verger Glider? I knew it was you. F***king Verger Glider, I'm going to catch you today. How many innocent virgins' blood debts are in your hands?" Dong Tianlong remembered Yun Yang's teachings firmly: if you want to stir up trouble, you must first stand on the moral high ground. In any case, Dong Tianlong felt that he had already stood firm today. "I'm going to get rid of the scourge for the people today. I'm going to enforce justice on behalf of heaven. I'm going all out today. I'm going to use my hot-bloodedness to reward my confidence, to spend my youth to write a legend." Dong Tianlong slammed the table with a loud bang. "Take him down." However, just as he finished his sentence, he felt a suffocating murderous aura. It was a bone-chilling coldness. The young master in white's expression changed from initially amiable to shock, to stupefaction, to rage, and finally to uncontrollable rage. Suddenly, he regained his composure. Not only did his eyes emit a chilling glint, his body was no longer trembling. There was also a formless pressure that appeared along with the change in his attitude, looming over Dong Tianlong. "How dare you?" The young master in white said coldly. Ever since this young master was born, no one has ever dared to speak to me like this. Come, child, you're very courageous. Say a few more words, let this young master broaden his horizons. Feeling the intense murderous aura and the immense pressure that only he could feel, Dong Tianlong almost peed his pants on the spot. There was only one thought in his mind at that moment. Oh my God, have I kicked a metal plate again? Why am I so unlucky? Why do I always end up kicking such indestructible metal plates? This metal plate in front of me doesn't seem to be much weaker than Ling Xiaozui. Recalling the words he had just uttered, Dong Tianlong only wanted to do one thing now. If he could swallow those words, his mouth would be as big as a wash basin. As the other party's words reached his ears, Dong Tianlong quivered, but a fearless sense of freedom rose within him. Since he had already scolded him, death was death. This young master was going all out. Didn't you want to broaden your horizons again? Oh, your father. I'll fulfill your wish, but if I were to fulfill his wish, this young master is a little afraid of death. What do you mean? Dong Tianlong straightened his neck, trying to look tough. I'll say a few more words just because you want me to. How embarrassing would that be? Broaden your horizons? How much money will you give me? I won't do as you wish. Young master is in a good mood today, so I'll let you go. Old Pang, let's go. Dong Tianlong wanted to run away immediately. Oh my God, you scared me to death. However, it was too late to leave now. Dong Tianlong's words had yet to echo in the air. Bang! Bang! Dong Tianlong felt as if he was flying through the clouds, flying far away. There was actually a strange period of flight before he landed heavily on the street. His entire body was in excruciating pain. His vision had turned black and he had broken 80 to 90 bones in his body. Turning his head with difficulty, he saw his guard, Old Pang, falling beside him. Old Pang. Dong Tianlong's vision darkened. Why can't you beat him? Why is my luck so bad? Old Pang straightened his back and wanted to stand up, but once he heard the words, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Why can't I beat him? Can't you see what F***king level he's at? It'd be a miracle if I could beat him. If I can defeat such an existence, won't I be able to challenge Ling Xiaozui? As for why your luck is so bad? Don't you have any idea why your luck is so F***king bad? You've been cursing me like a machine gun every single day. It would be God's fault if your luck got better. Grab him. The young master in white's expression was as cold as ice. Enter the residence of Yun. He had been troubled by the lack of a reason to lower himself to befriend Dong Tianlong. However, even if he succeeded, he would still have to take a roundabout route. Although he had been scolded by this bastard, he had already beaten him half to death and vented his anger. He could even use this as an excuse to look for Yun Yang. He could face him directly. He wanted to see how this young Master Yun would handle this sudden turn of events. He wanted to see what relationship this young Master Yun had with Ji Lingxi. Yun Yang was squatting on the ground, concentrating on training the mystical beasts. Hero. Come, here. Hero. Here. King. Jump. Don't move your legs when you jump. Shoo. 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 Do you understand now? Yun Yang asked Chun Wanfeng and the other two. The trio nodded in bewilderment. They had understood, but they did not seem to know what it meant. They did not even know what these methods could do. You don't have to understand the specifics. Just remember my gestures and slogans. Yun Yang comforted them, you've already improved a lot. With a little more practice, you'll be almost there. The three young masters looked miserable. Why don't I feel any improvement? Is it really almost there? Bang! They were communicating. The door of the residence of Yun was kicked open abruptly. The 2 panels flew in and landed in the yard with a loud bang. Then, 2 more thuds could be heard. 2 unconscious people fell in front of them. Winter was cold. Old Pang. The experts of the Dong family sprung up, each of them enraged. Who did this? There was a loud roar. I did it. A faint, icy voice rang from the door. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, only to see 2 people walking in slowly through the open door. One was white, the other black. One was young, the other old. One was handsome and elegant, while the other was old and stooped. Chapter 321. The faces of the experts of the 4 great clans changed when they sensed this unstoppable and terrifying aura. Where did these 2 top-notch experts come from? Such an expert was definitely at the legendary level. They could even be said to be on the same level as the unrivaled expert, Ling Xiaozue. The people present quickly weighed the situation and came to a conclusion: with this aura alone, even if they were to gang up on him, they would never be his opponent. In the face of an absolute gap in ability, the human wave tactic was not enough to pose a threat. What should he do about this? The young master in white walked forward with a cold expression and said faintly, "Who is Yun Yang?" He was looking for Yun Yang. He was relieved. However, why did he have to injure Dong Tianling if he was looking for Yun Yang? Yun Yang had expected the other party to come. He had been showing himself for a long period of time these few days just to wait for these 2 people to come. However, he had never thought that this so-called young lord would appear in front of him in such a manner. Because of this, the 2 of them were in the position of mortal enemies. Once he appeared and struck, he had beaten Dong Tianling to the brink of death. There was no room for turning the situation around. All of Yun Yang's previous preparations, plans, and countermeasures were suddenly in vain. In Yun Yang's estimation, this young lord was not from this world. No matter how strong he was, he had the persistence and restraint of a noble family. As long as there was no concrete evidence, such as proving that Yun Yang was supreme wind or exposing the true colors of the 2 girls, he would not confront him head-on, at least for now. The other party might take a roundabout way to establish a friendship, gradually causing both parties to cross paths. It was not that this person could not kill the 2 girls in one fell swoop, but that he had other plans. However, it was also evident that he was patient. If the other party had such intentions, Yun Yang could use this as a pretext to deal with him. However, the turn of events at this moment had caused all his previous plans to be in vain. At the same time, Yun Yang was enraged. So what if you're strong? First, you severely injured Dong Tianling and now you're here to pick a fight. Isn't it obvious that you're bullying us for being weak? We have the elites and experts of the 4 noble families here, as well as Bai Yixue, Lao Mei, and Fang Mafei. If we fight with all of our forces, we might still have a chance of survival. Yun Yang walked forward with a solemn expression and squatted down to check on Dong Tianling and Old Pang's injuries. He was immediately relieved. The 2 of them appeared to be heavily injured, but in reality, their lives were not in danger. It seemed that this young master had held back when he attacked. In other words, the situation had not escalated to the extreme yet, there was still room to turn back. Yun Yang quickly fed medicine to both of them to stabilize their injuries and asked the Dong family's experts to carry them aside. Only then did he stand up, his gaze focused on the young master in white. The young master in white watched with interest as Yun Yang worked hard to save the others. He stood with his arms behind his back, not urging Yun Yang at all. After all, no one in the residence of Yun was a threat to him. Moreover, he had his guards by his side. If the other party made any sudden moves, he could destroy them with a flip of his hand. Since he had the capital, it was natural for him to understand the other party's temperament and tactics first. "May I know who you are?" Yun Yang stood up straight, his expression as dark as still water. His eyes stared at the young lord in white as he said coldly, "Who are you to destroy my house and injure my brother? Why did you do this? What right do you have to do this?" Yun Yang was dressed in purple as usual, standing tall and straight as if he was out of this world. Standing opposite the young lord in white, they were equally matched and did not seem to be at a disadvantage. Moreover, that overbearing and eerie aura was even stronger than his opponent's by a notch. Yun Yang's demeanor at this moment made the experts of the four noble families shudder. Just based on his sense of responsibility and aura when facing an invincible enemy, he was definitely not an ordinary person. "Are you Yun Yang?" The young lord in white looked at Yun Yang and asked even though he already knew the answer. He did not answer Yun Yang's question but asked in return. It was obvious that he did not want to be in a position where he would be questioned. "I am Yun Yang." Yun Yang did not think it was a big deal and did not dwell on it. It would be a great joke if answering a question would weaken his aura. If it were true, it would only prove that he was too fragile. "You haven't answered my question," Yun Yang said in an even more domineering tone after answering the question. "Courtesy demands reciprocity. This young lord will answer your first question first. My surname is Lei. Even if I tell you, you won't know." The young lord of the Lei family said faintly, "As for why I did this, you should ask your brother what he did." "Lei surname?" Yun Yang immediately thought of the contents of his sixth brother Supreme Thunder's will. Bound of Universe, Lei family. Yun Yang had already thought that this young man in front of him was so powerful. In the secular world of Tianxian continent, it was impossible for someone so old to have such a strong cultivation base. He must be a visitor from another realm. Since this young man's surname was also Lei, could he be from the Lei family of the Bound of Universe? Should I ask him? Did he offend you? Yun Yang turned to look at Dong Tianling and had an idea. Yun Yang already had a good understanding of this person's character when they first met. Now, he had a deep understanding of this person. If it were not for their previous encounter, it would not be a glorious thing to have such a friend. This fellow was definitely a despicable person. There should be no one better than him in this world when it came to what he could do and what he could say to offend someone. This brother of yours speaks and acts. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to save some face for you, young Master Yun, it wouldn't be too much even if I killed him on the spot, the young master of the Lei family said casually. What happened now is just a light punishment. Just a light punishment? Just a light punishment was enough to beat someone half to death. Also, what did he mean by, killing him on the spot is not too much, mean? Who do you think you are, the king of heaven? The experts of the four noble families were enraged. Coincidentally, old Pang woke up at this time. Everyone's gaze shifted over and focused on the person who had just woken up. What exactly is going on? One of the experts from the Dong clan asked. Old Pang looked ashamed and averted his gaze. After a while, he let out a long sigh. To Old Pang, thinking of his young master's insults, even if he were to be killed on the spot, he would feel that it was only right. It was indeed a little too vicious. Anyone who heard of it would be disgusted, let alone the person who was directly involved. Even an ordinary person would be enraged by this, let alone such a supreme expert. Looking at Old Pang's reaction, everyone immediately understood the gist of the matter. It must be Dong Tianling who had started the trouble and had greatly offended the other party. That was why he was severely injured by the other party and even came looking for them. Do I still need to tell you the whole story now? The young lord of the Lei family said with a smile. Yun Yang sighed and said, even if there was a reason for this, your actions were really, sigh. His tone softened instantly. Great young Master Yun was a man who knew how to adapt to the situation. He was filled with anger and wanted to fight without a care, but he was forced by the situation. The experts of the four noble families were not a threat at all, especially the other three families other than the Dong family. Once the situation went south, they would most likely have to protect themselves and stay out of trouble. The so-called friendly alliance was insignificant in a life-and-death situation. If they really fought, they would definitely lose. Now that the situation had changed, it was the direction that Yun Yang was most happy to see. The young lord of the Lei family smiled inwardly. This method was indeed feasible. On the other side, old Pang told the whole story in detail in a low voice. Everyone looked at each other as they listened. This matter was really, especially when old Pang repeated what Dong Tianling had said. The person involved was right here, so there was no way for him to edit it out. He could only recite what he had said. When the crowd heard this, they could see black lines on their foreheads and cold sweat all over their bodies. To be able to say such things and be beaten up, was not a big deal at all. If the person involved was himself, with such a strong ability, he would have killed him with a single blow. Yun Yang's attitude changed immediately as he sighed, "Dong family, quickly carry your young master back to recuperate. Sigh, this matter is so embarrassing and shameful." He then turned to the young lord of the Lei family, "Brother Lei, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me some face and showing mercy to me at this time of rage. This matter is really... Alright. We can be considered to have gotten to know each other through Discord. Come. The misunderstanding has been resolved. Brother Lei has even come personally. That means that you think highly of me and treat me as a friend. Just because you've given me face, you must stay for a drink." Without waiting for young Master Lei to speak, Yun Yang began to make arrangements. "Lao Mei, go prepare some dishes and wine. Tonight, I want to drink with Brother Lei until we're drunk." He laughed and said, "As the saying goes, fate brings us together from thousands of miles away. A cup of wine can dissolve all enmity. Brother Lei, you must drink this cup of wine." This turn of events made the young master in white stunned for a moment. This was his goal, but he did not expect it to be achieved so easily. The experts of the four noble families secretly nodded in approval at Yun Yang's actions. This young Master Yun was really something. When he was unaware of the truth, he was neither servile nor overbearing when facing such a superb expert. He knew when to advance and when to retreat, and was even willing to take the risk of dying together with him. When he understood the whole story and the truth of the matter, his attitude changed drastically, turning a big issue into a small one and a small one into nothing with just a few words. There was no trace of reluctance in his tone. This was the means of an ambitious man who knew when to yield and when to stand tall. He was definitely someone who would achieve great things. Moreover, everyone understood very well that they would definitely not be able to defeat this young Master Lei and his guards. Since there was a chance to turn an enemy into a friend, why wouldn't he do it? Perhaps they could even obtain a strong alliance in the future. Young Master Yun is indeed a talent. It's not without reason that he could make this family's young master his bosom friend and even willingly become his follower. The experts of the four noble families were all praising him in their hearts. Look at young Master Yun, then look at our family's talent. They really can't be compared. How did the saying go again? Comparisons are odious, comparisons are odious. What a wise saying. It was especially so for the Dong family. Looking at Yun Yang, who had managed to turn the situation around with just a few words, then looking at their young master who had been beaten half to death for causing trouble, they felt that it would be better to live a piece of barbecued pork than to live him. What a difference. This young Master Lei was inwardly disdainful. "It's only because I have a motive that I can give you face. Yun Yang, don't think that you're so great, actually, in my heart, you're nothing, just a piece of trash." However, his face was filled with a warm smile as he said, "Brother Yun is too courteous. It's just that this young brother has broken Brother Yun's door in a fit of anger just now. I'm really sorry." Chapter 322. Compared to a friend, what's a door worth? Yunyang guffawed and said brightly, if Brother Lei still has such thoughts, aren't you looking down on your young brother? As he spoke, he turned around and said, all of you stay here to take care of the mystical beasts. I'll go talk to Brother Lei first. Then, he secretly gave the experts of the 4 great clans a look. Everyone understood immediately. They had yet to establish their friendship and it was only a turning point. Naturally, the priority was to prevent young Master Lei from seeing Dong Tianlong. What if he was enraged again? If Dong Tianlong did not know what was good for him and cursed again when he woke up, it would be terrible. Furthermore, Yunyang helping the 4 noble families to train the mystical beast cubs was an extremely secretive matter. No matter how high young Master Lei's cultivation base was, he had to keep this a secret if he could. Young Master Yun was indeed thorough in his considerations. He had considered every aspect without missing out. Please, Brother Lei. Both of them walked hand in hand affectionately. May I ask, where did Brother Lei come from? Just based on Brother Lei's cultivation base, you're already beyond the scope of an ordinary cultivator. Yunyang seemed to be trying to figure out the other person's background. Young Master Lei smiled, Brother Yun has sharp eyes, but our family has never been in the secular world. I'm afraid Brother Yun wouldn't know even if I told you. Yunyang was suddenly enlightened, Brother Lei is indeed an expert from a reclusive family. No wonder you're so skilled. Speaking of which, Brother Lei's cultivation base really makes me gasp in awe. Young Master Lei smiled reservedly, Brother Yun is too courteous. It's just a family heirloom that I've learned by chance. It's just a small trick, not worth mentioning. Yunyang poured tea and smiled, but I wonder what Brother Lei's purpose of stepping into the secular world this time. Of course, if it's not convenient for me to say it, just take it that I'm being rude. How can we speak so deeply when we're just acquaintances? But if there's anything I can help with, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm considered to have some ability in the Empire of Yutong. He smiled faintly and said, since Brother Lei has given me face, I, Yunyang, should return the favor. If I can help Brother Lei solve some troubles or small problems, this Yun will not shirk from my duty and will definitely not hesitate. Young Master Lei sighed softly. His face was filled with emotions as he said, Brother Yun, you're straightforward with your words. I won't hide it from you either. Initially, our family rarely gets involved in the mortal world and we wouldn't have sent me out for no reason. However, we've really encountered something this time and it's making me feel rather troubled. This time, I came back to the world of martial arts because I had no other choice. Young Master Lei looked melancholic. Yunyang took a look. This guy actually wants to compete with me in acting? He had found the right person. Let's see whose acting skills are better and who will be the best actor. Yunyang sighed as well. 9 out of 10 things in this world don't go according to one's wishes. However, I never expected that a huge family like Brother Lei, with such a superb cultivation base, would actually have troubles. I'm afraid this kind of trouble isn't something that can be solved by an ordinary person. This was a very normal reaction. I said I'm willing to help you, but I'm just an ordinary person. Don't expect me to do everything. My ability is very limited. Young Master Lei sighed leisurely, that might not be the case. Immortals are the achievements of mortals after all. Naturally, they have a lot of troubles that mortals have. It's not that you can be free of worries just because you're capable. Yunyang vomited in his heart and agreed, Brother Lei's words are indeed wise. Mortals all say that immortals are good, but even immortals sometimes think about mortals. Here's what happened. Young Master Lei heaved a long sigh. There's nothing much to say about this matter. After all, one shouldn't wash one's dirty linen in public. However, Brother Yun is a friend. It's all right to say it. I'm all ears. I'm already 25 years old this year. Initially, my family had arranged a marriage. I was planning to get married this year. However, I didn't expect my fiancée to be dissatisfied with the family's arrangement and ran away. Young Master Lei said in melancholy. Yun Yang's face was full of concern. How could this happen? With Brother Lei's character, appearance, family background, and martial art skills, how could there be such a silly girl? Young Master Lei smiled bitterly. My fiancé has never seen me in person. This, Yun Yang sighed with regret. Sigh, there are many misunderstandings caused by ignorance. Otherwise, the world would be much less troubled. I believe that if sister-in-law had met Brother Lei, she wouldn't be like this. I believe that there's hardly any girl in this world who can reject a Mr. Right like Brother Lei. Young Master Lei blushed slightly. Brother Yun, you flatter me. Yun Yang vomited in his heart. This bastard could actually pretend to blush. What an actor. He had finally met his match today. Although I consider myself to be good-looking, compared to Brother Yun, I'm still far from it. Indeed, there's always someone better than you, young Master Lei said. Yun Yang blushed immediately and said in embarrassment, this young brother is only presentable in terms of appearance. How can I be compared to Brother Lei in other aspects? The difference is like heaven and earth, we can't even be mentioned in the same breath. Can you perform a blushing act? I'll perform a blushing act for you. Do you think I'm afraid of you if I show off my acting skills? The corners of young Master Lei's lips twitched slightly. I'm being humble to you. Do you really think that your appearance is so outstanding? Do you really think that a man can only rely on his appearance? I'm not a man who lives off a woman. Brother Yun and I hit it off the moment we met. As the saying goes, white hair is as new as new. That's why I'm telling you about this. Speaking of which, this matter is really embarrassing. Young Master Lei's gaze focused on Yun Yang's face as he said, however, this matter concerns the reputation of the Lei family and the friendship between the previous generation. I have no choice but to come out of the mountains to look for my fiancée. I hope that she can understand me after seeing me. I, Lei Dongtian, am not a shallow person, nor am I a cruel and popinjay young master of an aristocratic family. Yun Yang praised, Brother Lei's action is what a real man should do. You're broad-minded, just like the boundless ocean. Lei Dongtian said, this can't be helped. After all, this is a marriage set by the parents of both parties. As their children, I have to fulfill the wishes of the elders. Yun Yang said, I understand what Brother Lei means. Rest assured, as long as you give me the portrait of your future wife, as long as she's still within the borders of Yutong, this young brother will definitely help you find her without hesitation. This was still the attitude of a normal person. Although Lei Dongtian's ability and cultivation base were astounding, there were only two people, a master and a servant. The manpower was limited. Naturally, the more people and the stronger the ability, the easier it would be to find someone. This was something that Yun Yang could do. As for the heir of Marquis of Heavenly Clouds, it would undoubtedly be a great thing if he could build a relationship with Lei Dongtian through this matter. Thank you so much for your help, Brother Yun. Lei Dongtian said, touched. It's nothing. There's no need for Brother Lei to be so courteous. Yun Yang patted his chest and said, just like what Brother Lei has said, you and I are like old friends at first sight. For a real man, it is still a trivial matter to go through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames for a friend. Finding traces of people is just a trivial matter. It is nothing to mention, absolutely nothing. There's a portrait of my fiancée here. Lei Dongtian's face revealed a hint of playfulness. Quick, let me have a look. This young brother is looking forward to seeing your future wife's face, Yun Yang urged. Lei Dongtian nodded and took out a scroll from his robe. It unfolded slowly. On the screen, a lady dressed in white stood under a heavenly fragrant flower tree. Behind her were flowers that bloomed brilliantly. However, the colorful flowers could not be noticed in front of her. Everyone's eyes and attention were focused on that beautiful face. Her beauty was unparalleled. She exuded the playfulness and naivety of a young lady amidst her dignified demeanor. Anyone who saw her could not help but like her. First, they liked her, wanted to protect her, wanted to take care of her, and were afraid that she would be wronged. Then, it was a deep infatuation. How could there be such a beauty in this world? Although Yunyang was mentally prepared, he still felt suffocated when he saw the portrait. His mind was filled with breathtaking thoughts. There were only 8 words lingering in his mind: unparalleled beauty, unparalleled beauty. This was only a portrait. Just from this portrait alone, it was not difficult to imagine how breathtaking she would be if she were to see her in person. How beautiful! Yunyang praised sincerely. Her looks are only passable. Tiantang is a land of outstanding talents. How could she possibly be worthy of Brother Yun's attention? Lei Dongtian was genuinely surprised. Looking at the undisguised awe and admiration in Yunyang's eyes, Lei Dongtian was truly confused. Was it not said that Ji Lingxi had interacted with this fellow for a short period of time? Why was this fellow not reacting strangely at all? Now that he was monitoring Yunyang's heartbeat and pulse, he could feel it even if a strand of his hair moved or a strand of hair stood on end. Why did this child act like he had never seen her before? Could it be that the information was wrong? Lei Dongtian was dumbfounded. This situation was not right. Should he not be putting on an act, saying that he knew the lady in the portrait but that they had not contacted each other for some time? He thought that he had calculated everything and predicted Yunyang's possible reactions, but what he did not expect was that Yunyang had never seen Ji Lingxi's real face. Therefore, the attack that he had unleashed as a heavy hammer was completely useless in front of Yunyang. My fiancé's name is Ji Lingxi, Lei Dongtian could not help but remind him. Yunyang praised, the body has no wings of the phoenix, but the heart is connected. What a good name! What a good name indeed! Lei Dongtian could not help but scratch his head. This child before him was not putting on an act at all. The script was not right. Chapter 323. The show was already halfway through, but the other party suddenly stopped taking the bait, or rather, changed the direction of the plot. What was going on? The black-robed elder had his head lowered, his expression hidden. If he were to lift his head, one would definitely see that he was equally bewildered. Ji Lingxi had stayed in Tiantang City and had a lot of contact with Yunyang. There was no doubt about it, no doubt about it. However, Ji Lingxi had disguised herself and even changed her name at that time. At this point, they did not know the truth. Firstly, they had yet to contact Ji Lingxi's sisters, and secondly, even if they did, Ji Lingxi might not tell them the truth. Furthermore, what they knew was only limited to the time when Ji Lingxi had disguised herself and met Yunyang under an alias. As for Ji Lingxi's family, they were even more unscrupulous. Lei Dongtian's original intention was not wrong. A woman would disguise herself for the one she liked. How could a woman not show her most beautiful side when she was with the one she liked? However, coincidentally, Ji Lingxi did not have the time to do so. If it were not for Ji Lingfeng's will, Yunyang would not have known that Ji Lingxi was Ji Lingxi. Although Ji Lingxi had feelings for Yunyang, Yunyang had always put himself in the position of a father and brother. He really did not treat Ji Lingxi as his sweetheart, at least not the kind of sweetheart that Lei Dongtian thought. Therefore, from Lei Dongtian's point of view, perhaps both of them did not have that kind of relationship. Or perhaps he was in a situation where he was having a hot head shaving. However, the show was already halfway through. It had to continue no matter what. Brother Yun is already aware of the cause of this matter, but the subsequent part is the main cause of my current worry. Actually, with our efforts, we have found her. Lei Dongtian sighed. However, at the crucial moment when we were about to meet, someone else came out and caused all our plans to fail. Yunyang was surprised. Brother Lei, forgive this young brother for not being able to understand the situation that you're talking about. The aura and grace that you've displayed just now is already at the pinnacle of this world. Who could actually interfere in Brother Lei's matters? Furthermore, it could even frustrate Brother Lei. This is terrifying to think about. It was the reaction of a normal person again. A ruthless character who could make Lei Dongtian return in defeat without accomplishing anything was not someone a small character like Yunyang could shake. Not only was it terrifying to think about it, it was terrifying to even think about it. It's our fault for not being on guard. To think that something like this would happen. Lei Dongtian said, but after we asked around, we found out that the person who intervened in this matter had an extraordinary background. Yunyang asked cautiously, may I ask who that person is? This person's strength is not ordinary. He also has a mysterious technique that allows him to turn his body into a tornado. This person used this technique to take my fiancée away. However, as to how strong this person really is, I don't know. Lei Dongtian said proudly. Yunyang was shocked, actually standing up. It's Lord Supreme Wind? Lei Dongtian said, so, Brother Yun knows Lord Supreme Wind too. Yunyang chuckled bitterly, his expression blank as he said, as a man of Yutong, how can I, Yunyang, not know Lord Supreme Wind? Brother Lei, I'm afraid that this matter of yours will be troublesome. Lei Dongtian said, oh? Why would it be troublesome? With Brother Yun's identity as the son of Marquis of Heavenly Clouds, it shouldn't be difficult to find a person, right? If it's just looking for a person, it wouldn't be difficult to find 10 or 100 people, let alone one person. However, if this matter involves Lord Supreme Wind, then it's a huge problem. Yunyang took a deep breath, his expression solemn and his voice became so weak that it could not be heard. Even if Lord Supreme Wind is Yutong's hero, he can't simply interfere in other people's families' affairs. Is it reasonable for him to snatch someone else's wife? Lei Dongtian put on a displeased expression, no matter where this matter goes, it will always be the same. Yunyang looked like he was having a toothache as he said, this matter, sigh. Brother Lei might not know about it. Lei Dongtian said, please enlighten me, Brother Yun. Yunyang's expression was extremely troubled as he said, Brother Lei, you. He raised his head and looked at Lei Dongtian, his gaze was filled with confusion. Lei Dongtian's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that there was an inside story to this matter? Did this Lord Supreme Wind have other entanglements? He looked at Yunyang with a straight face and suddenly bowed deeply, saying, Brother Yun, I beg of you. Please enlighten me. Yunyang's expression was solemn as he took in deep breaths. After a long while, he seemed to have made up his mind and said, Brother Lei, although you and I feel like old friends at first sight, this matter is too important. Lei Dongtian said seriously, if it wasn't important, I wouldn't have come looking for Brother Yun's help so hastily. Yunyang pondered and said, this is Brother Lei's first time leaving your sect and stepping into the world, isn't it? That's right. Lei Dongtian said. Not only is it Brother Lei's first time leaving your sect, but you've also pursued me all the way to Tiantang City, am I right? Yunyang asked. Indeed. Lei Dongtian knew that Yunyang must have an ulterior motive, so he answered readily. He wanted to see what else Yunyang had to say, whether he could use the word justice. This also means that after Brother Lei left home and before meeting me, you haven't met anyone from other countries? Yunyang continued to ask seriously. Yes, I haven't. Young Master Lei seemed to vaguely understand the true meaning of Yunyang's words, but it was not that clear. The reason is simple. It's probably. Yunyang scratched his head in annoyance and said, but I'm still not sure if I should tell you. Brother Lei, this matter concerns the fate of the Empire of Yutong. At the same time, it's a secret that only a few people in the Empire of Yutong know. If I tell you and leak it out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Lei Dongtian said in a low voice, don't worry, Brother Yun. I'm not a person of this worldly world. The rise and fall of countries in this world are nothing in my eyes. His eyes flickered as he said, since it's a big secret that only a few people in the Empire of Yutong know about, then Brother Yun, Yunyang smiled proudly and said, my father, the Marquis of Heavenly Clouds. Although he's only a marquis in name, in fact, he's the blood brother of His Majesty the Emperor. Lei Dongtian's eyes widened in surprise as he said, forgive me for my rudeness. So Brother Yun is a noble descendant. Yunyang's expression immediately turned dejected as he said faintly, Brother Lei thinks too highly of me. My father is only the illegitimate son of the late emperor. His identity is not something that can be revealed in public. Lei Dongtian nodded and said, don't worry, Brother Yun. Just because you're willing to tell me the truth about your birth, I, Lei Dongtian, will be your lifelong friend. Lei Dongtian's promise was not an ordinary one. One should know that his ability was almost at the level of Ling Xiaozui. He was definitely a Tianxian pinnacle master. With such a backing, Yunyang would be much more confident. Lei Dongtian felt that it was more than enough. Regarding the birth that Yunyang had mentioned, Lei Dongtian felt that it would not be a lie. Although he had not inquired about it, there must be a lot of people who knew about it. Yunyang could not lie to him about this. However, he was still hesitant about revealing the 9 Supremes when he had even revealed such a secret of his birth. This matter was worth considering. Lei Dongtian's promise was not just for show. If Yunyang really had nothing to do with Supreme Wind or Ji Lingxi, then it would be necessary to give Yunyang some benefits. After all, Yunyang's manner of speech, demeanor, and image were all top-notch, and Lei Dongtian was very fond of them. A person's appearance was outstanding and his good looks were always advantageous wherever he went. This was yet another proof. Brother Lei, I will only say this once. Yunyang said, out of my mouth, into your ears. Lei Dongtian nodded seriously. He could not help but feel nervous about Yunyang's seriousness. He said in a low voice, don't worry, no one else will know about this. Just as Yunyang opened his mouth to speak, he suddenly looked dejected again. After a moment of silence, he said, forget it, Brother Lei. This young brother has let you down. This matter, Lei Dongtian was stunned. F***ck, your father has already taken off my pants, and this is what you show me? He asked hurriedly, Brother Yun, if you still have any concerns, why don't you say it? Yunyang shook his head, no, I can't say it. Lei Dongtian frowned. Suddenly, he stretched out his right hand and wiped the ring on his left hand. Then, a large piece of 7-colored jade appeared out of thin air in his hand. As soon as this palm-sized mystical jade was taken out, the spiritual qi in the entire room instantly became extremely dense, causing the spirits of the 3 people present to be shaken. Brother Yun, you and I are like old friends when we meet today. I regret not meeting you earlier. This piece of jade is a greeting gift from me, please accept it first, said Lei Dongtian. It seemed that moving Yunyang with emotion and making friends could no longer move him. Therefore, Lei Dongtian immediately changed his strategy and began to tempt him with benefits. Yunyang stared blankly, This is just a piece of 7-colored spiritual jade. We cultivators can use it to enhance our cultivation base. Such a piece of spiritual jade is enough to push your current cultivation base forward, said Lei Dongtian. He was very satisfied with Yunyang's current reaction. How could these country bumpkins be so shocked by a piece of 7-colored spiritual jade? Look at your inexperienced look. Let's see if you still won't tell the truth later. Yunyang picked up the spiritual jade and looked at it for a while. He sighed and said, extremely conflicted, no. I can't say it. This matter is too important. Brother Lei, don't make it difficult for me. Although he said so, he did not let go of the hand that held the 7-colored spiritual jade. The meaning of this was very meaningful. Seeing this, Lei Dongtian smiled faintly. His right hand touched the ring again and took out the colorful spiritual jades one by one. 2 pieces. 3 pieces. 5 pieces. 10 pieces. 15 pieces. 20 pieces. Lei Dongtian stopped and said sincerely, as long as Brother Yun can tell me the whole story, these will be a token of my appreciation. Cough, many people say that I like to lie. Here, I solemnly declare that Yunyang is Yunyang and I am me. Yunyang lies, but it doesn't mean that I do. I never lie, I am very honest and my character is absolutely honorable. Chapter 324. Yunyang swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. His eyes stared straight at the table full of spiritual jades, unblinking. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Obviously, he wanted it to the extreme, but he was still weighing the pros and cons in his heart. He closed his eyes and pushed both of his hands outwards, saying with difficulty, Brother Lei, I am not the kind of person who forgets about morality at the sight of profit. I don't have a place to put them even if I take them. You. I'd better, Lei Dongtian smiled faintly, his right hand swiping at the ring on his left hand. A fruit suddenly appeared on the table. It was a bright red fruit the size of a finger. However, the flesh of the fruit seemed to be transparent, and there was a faint glimmer of starlight flowing within it. It was obviously an extraordinary fruit. The moment he took it out, a thin layer of mist appeared on the surface of the fruit. In the next moment, an indescribable fragrance filled the entire space. Lei Dongtian's voice was leisurely as he introduced, Brother Yun, this is a 500-year-old ruby fruit. Don't underestimate its small size. Not only does it taste great, but it can also increase a martial artist's cultivation base by 50 years each time they consume it. 50 years of cultivation base? Yun Yang's eyes widened, and his entire body trembled. His so-called grace had long disappeared. If you can consume 3 of them, it can increase your cultivation base by no less than 100 years. However, each person can only consume 3 at most. More than that, you can only satisfy your cravings. Lei Dongtian said slowly, as long as Brother Yun is willing to tell me the truth, I can give you 10 of these fruits. I came out in a hurry this time, so I didn't bring many with me. If there's a chance in the future, I'll bring some more for Brother Yun. Yun Yang's face was flushed, as if he was dizzy. He breathed heavily and said, this, Lei Dongtian smiled, waiting for him to make a decision. Yun Yang sucked in a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and rubbed his cheeks with both hands. His eyes were red, and he said with all his might, Brother Lei, a straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. He closed his eyes, raised his head, and took a deep breath. Finally, he opened his eyes and said with a desperate and crazy tone, I want 30 pieces of spirit jades. I want 30 of these fruits. Then, add a ring like the one on your finger. Yun Yang closed his eyes, panting heavily as he murmured, I shall be greedy and despicable for once today. The black-robed old man flew into a rage and said, You're clearly asking for too much. Do you know that these things? Lei Dongtian wanted to stop him, but before he could do so, Yun Yang seemed to relax and opened his eyes at once. He said in a low voice, I see. I was just speaking casually. Yun Yang is only a small character outside the imperial court. How could he be of any great ability to help young Master Lei? Lei Dongtian stared at the black-robed elder fiercely. His eyes were full of blame. Yun Yang was about to give in, but the black-robed elder's words had gone against Yun Yang's moral bottom line, causing all of young Master Lei's efforts to go down the drain. How could he not be angry? The black-robed elder gritted his teeth and lowered his head. Don't worry, Brother Yun. This is my guard. Servants have always paid attention to the gains and losses of external things. How would they know about the friendship between you and me? Lei Dongtian said. Yun Yang said faintly, what this guard said is the truth. I was indeed too greedy. I shall learn from this and never act recklessly again. Lei Dongtian said, Brother Yun. Yun Yang waved his hand and interrupted him, saying, Brother Lei, you don't have to say any more. I couldn't control myself just now and made a fool of myself. Sigh, I've always boasted about my loyalty to the country, but just now. This is the crime of betraying the country. How can any Yutang citizen do it? Even if I didn't do it, I know I shouldn't do it just by thinking about it. Lei Dongtian glared at the black-robed old man again. The black-robed elder was as quiet as a cicada in winter. The crime of betraying the country? It turned out to be such a big deal. Come to think of it, the 9 Supremes were indeed related to the fate of Yutang. Yun Yang's words were probably true. Lei Dongtian pondered for a moment and said, Brother Yun, you don't have to be so absolute. Whether it's the Lei family or myself, we have no conflict with your country, nor are we enemies. Even towards Lord Supreme Wind, we only have respect. How about this, other than the 30 pieces of rainbow spiritual jade, 30 pieces of 500-year-old ruby fruit, and a spatial ring, I'll give you 5 stalks of mystical spirit grass and 3 meridian uniting pills. The mystical spirit grass can not only make the dantian and meridians more flexible, it can also greatly increase the strength of the deific consciousness. The effect of the meridian uniting pill is, if someone can't break through or has yet to reach the stage of success, consuming the meridian uniting pill will allow the advancement to be completely smooth, allowing one to cross a level and increase one's strength by 3 times. Lei Dongtian said slowly, these items, in addition to the spiritual jade and ruby fruit. Brother Yun is now at the 7th peak pinnacle, but with these, it's enough for you to step into the realm of 10th peak perfection within half a year, or even higher. It can increase Brother Yun's power by 100 times on the basis of his current strength. In fact, it might even be more than that. This is the greatest sincerity that I can offer. As long as Brother Yun uses it, you can become the top expert in the world within a year, other than a handful of people. Lei Dongtian said, I only hope that Brother Yun can tell me the truth, I'll be grateful. Once it's done, there will be rewards. Yun Yang's breathing grew heavier. He struggled for a long time, his expression uncertain. After a long while, he finally said through gritted teeth, I want these items now. That's reasonable, no problem at all. Lei Dongtian smiled easily. He turned his head and snorted. The black-robed elder took out his ring with some resistance. Lei Dongtian took the ring and snorted. If this bastard didn't interrupt just now, why would I need to take out the additional mystical spirit grass and meridian uniting pills? One had to know that just these 2 items alone were extremely valuable. Brother Yun, this is a storage ring. Lei Dongtian smiled and said, Come, let me teach you how to use it. Under Lei Dongtian's serious guidance, Yun Yang first smeared his own blood on the entire ring, then slowly immersed it with his spiritual power. Finally, he used his deific consciousness to establish a spiritual connection with the ring and successfully recognized it as its owner. Only then did he begin to practice using it. Yun Yang, who was a beginner, used his spiritual power to lock onto a rainbow spiritual jade. With a thought, the spiritual jade disappeared at once. Good stuff. It's really amazing. Yun Yang beamed with joy. The black-robed elder felt like his stomach was about to explode. Of course it's good stuff. That's my treasure, the treasure that I've used for half my life. How can it not be good stuff? What a despicable greedy man. It really hurts this old man's heart to death. He had never suffered such a huge loss. His spatial ring was actually gone on this trip, 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces. Yunyang put away the 20 rainbow spiritual jades and looked at Lei Dongtian eagerly, playing the wretched image of not releasing the eagle without seeing the rabbit. Lei Dongtian laughed and took out another 10 pieces with a wave of his hand. Yunyang continued to keep them. Then, he kept the cinnabar fruits. 3 pieces. Lei Dongtian frowned and waved his hand again. 27 cinnabar fruits appeared on the table immediately. Yunyang did the same and kept them. Lei Dongtian then took out the mystic spiritual grass and the meridian unblocking pill. Yunyang put away all the spiritual materials and was completely satisfied. He put the ring on his middle finger and said happily, "It matches my finger perfectly." The black-robed elder was so angry that his nose was contorted. This time, it was really too much of a rip-off. Lei Dongtian was still unruffled and calm. However, there was a hint of coldness in the depth of his eyes as he spoke in a composed manner. "Brother Yun, your country seems to place a lot of importance on the 9 Supremes and Supreme Winds matter." He was asking for payment. "You've already received my payment. You should say something to make me feel that it's worth it." Yunyang took a deep breath and smiled. "There are many complicated things in this. I have to tell you one by one. Brother Lei, please don't be anxious." Lei Dongtian's eyes flashed coldly as he said with a smile, "Brother Yun, don't tell me those complicated things. My time is precious and I can't afford to waste it." Lei Dongtian was already dissatisfied. The phrase, "can't afford to waste it," was not only referring to himself, but also a warning to Yunyang. If the value of the information was not enough, Yunyang had to be mentally prepared to pay the price. Was it that easy to take advantage of this young master? Yunyang chuckled, "If Brother Lei is not satisfied, I will return these things to you in their original forms. I have nothing else to offer in the secular world, but I still have a human head on my neck. Is this gift of apology enough?" Lei Dongtian laughed. "Brother Yun is too serious." He thought to himself, "If you were to brush me off, do you think I wouldn't take your head?" Yunyang thought about it carefully. After a long, long time, he spoke again. "This matter is really a long story." He looked around and said, "Can you let this old man look after the door?" Lei Dongtian nodded gently, "Of course." The black-robed elder stood up with a belly full of anger, feeling that his stomach was about to explode. He walked out and stood straight at the door like a zombie. "Brother Lei, it's not that I'm trying to be mysterious, but what I'm going to say today is the top secret of our country. No matter what position I'm in or what kind of guarantee Brother Lei has given me, I shouldn't reveal it." Yunyang caressed the ring on his finger, his face full of bitterness. "Today, I've been blinded by greed and violated the principles of life. I only hope that this will not cause harm to my country." "Absolutely not," Lei Dongtian said with a straight face, "I can guarantee this, Brother Yun." "Sigh, Yunyang has been bribed. I want to be bribed too. What should I do?" "Bribe me with a few monthly tickets." Chapter 325. Lei Dongtian was sincere in his promise of absolutely not. To Lei Dongtian, the Tianxian continent, a mere country, was nothing in his eyes. Yunyang sighed softly. His gaze was still a little unfocused as he pondered quietly again. This time, he was deliberating on his words. After a long time, he finally spoke. "A few years ago, Tiantang City was suddenly bestowed with the 9 heavens domain, forming the residence of 9 Supremes. This residence of 9 supremes requires 9 people of different cultivation attributes to enter the residence to learn the peerless cultivation method and become the 9 supremes. Yun Yang enunciated each word clearly. These things have long been circulating among the people. I believe Brother Lei has long known about it. Even if you don't know the truth, the reason for it is clear. However, I still have to start from here. Lei Dongtian said humbly, I understand. I'm very interested to know the entire story of this how. Yun Yang said, there was only 1 or 2 of the 9 supremes in the beginning. At that time, our country's external war had already been reversed because of their intervention. Later on, as the 9 supremes lords continued to appear, the 9 supremes were finally gathered. In terms of combat power, the empire of Yutong's army was already invincible. This also meant that Yutong's opportunity to conquer the world had appeared. Therefore, it finally attracted the joint forces of the 4 empires and 7 heroes to come for the war. They dared not let us continue to grow stronger. If they continued to wait, it would be equivalent to waiting for death. However, even when the 4 empires advanced together, the 7 heroes attacked together, and the 9 supremes lords fought on the battlefield, appearing and disappearing mysteriously, the 4 empires were still defeated and their efforts were futile. Yun Yang sucked in a deep breath. However, the total military power of the 4 empires and 7 heroes still far exceeded what Yutong could defend against. To put it in the simplest and most straightforward way, even if the lives of 5 of their warriors were exchanged for 1 of ours, as long as this war continues, the empire of Yutong would still be unable to sustain itself and its defeat would be inevitable. Even with the help of the 9 supremes lords, we can barely maintain the stability of the war and not lose an inch of land. However, it's absolutely impossible for us to continue expanding. Moreover, after many years of war, the strength of the nation and its people have long been extremely lacking. Fighting a war will always cost money. It's the same for our country. The other 4 countries and 7 heroes are also suffering. Their losses are even greater than our country's. It's just that they are cooperating with each other and supporting each other, not allowing any one of them to collapse. They are also able to hold on, causing both sides to fall into a stalemate and a dangerous balance. Finally, in the winter of the year before last, both sides stopped fighting. Everyone needs to recuperate. In fact, our country is also relieved by the armistice this time. Back then, my father had even sighed and said that as long as the empire of Yutong had 3 years to recuperate, the 9 supremes might would be enough to conquer the world and conquer Tianxian. At that time, we were all very happy, because this eternal war was finally over. Yun Yang's expression was solemn. However, in the 3rd month of last year, a war report suddenly came like a bolt from the blue. When the 9 supremes lords went out to carry out a secret mission, their whereabouts were inexplicably exposed. In the Battle of Tianxian Cliff, the entire army was annihilated and the 9 supremes were no more. When the news came back, the entire empire of Yutong was in a daze. It's just that this matter has dealt a huge blow to us. Lei Dongtian nodded and sighed as well. That's right. Everyone feels the same way. Putting ourselves in their shoes, such a blow isn't something an ordinary person can withstand. However, after a year, there was suddenly news that the 9 supremes lords had begun their revenge, targeting everyone who was involved in the plot against the 9 supremes. The news itself was secondary. The key was that this news also revealed another fact: there were still people alive among the 9 supremes lords. The nation was in jubilation then. Although only one of the 9 supremes lords reappeared, we don't know if he was the only one left. However, to all the citizens of the Empire of Yutong, it was no small matter. Everyone felt that they had seen hope, that Yutong wouldn't fall, that the nation wouldn't be annihilated. At that time, even though we didn't know which one of the 9 supremes lords was alive, everyone was hoping, praying, and wishing them well. It didn't matter who it was, as long as one of the 9 supremes was still alive. At that time, even His Majesty the Emperor was very excited. The 9 supremes' revenge pointed to the 4 Seasons Tower, and all the enemies pointed out by the 9 supremes were strictly punished. During that time, as long as the 9 supremes' lord said it, there was no need for evidence, no need for investigation, and the person could be convicted and punished. Yunyang said seriously, "Brother Lei, you can imagine how much our country values our heroes." Lei Dongtian sighed. That's right. Although Lei Dongtian did not place much importance on worldly imperial power, to be able to worship someone to such an extent, to be so highly valued and even worshipped, even he could not help but be fascinated. However, the 9 supremes lords have never really shown up. The 9 supremes lords have only been carrying out their revenge operations, continuously finding out the spies lurking in Yutang. We, Yutang's officials, have been dealing with the aftermath. This situation has been going on for a year, until now. Yunyang's expression was extremely solemn. However, until today, we were shocked to realize that everything seemed to have gone out of control. Out of control? Lei Dongtian raised his eyebrows. Yes, out of control. Yunyang heaved a long sigh. It was at this time that the surviving 9 supremes lords appeared. Only then did everyone confirm that the only survivor of the 9 supremes was Lord Supreme Wind. Since Lord Supreme Wind's reappearance, not only was his existence inspiring, the first thing he did after his reappearance was to help us defeat Dongshuan's army. Many things that happened after that made people feel that everything he did was beneficial to the country, that he spared no effort for the country and its people. Yunyang sighed, therefore, we no longer had any doubts, that it was indeed Lord Supreme Wind. However, something huge happened in the dark, something that we've only confirmed recently. Yunyang said worriedly, the forces that originally belonged to the 9 supremes lords, the subordinates of the so-called 9 heavens dictum, did not lose control due to the lack of a leader during the days when the 9 supremes lords went missing. They were always under the country's control and their actions were restrained. However, since Lord Supreme Wind returned, these men started to disappear gradually, leaving the country's control bit by bit. Eventually, their whereabouts were unknown. Yunyang sighed deeply. Lei Dongtian's expression changed as well. How is this possible? A country's military force should always be under the country's control. How could it suddenly disappear? Lose control? Could it be that these people are all dead? They're not dead. Yunyang chuckled bitterly. However, they're no longer contributing to the country. They're only serving this Lord Supreme Wind who's still alive. This is getting more and more interesting. Lei Dongtian smiled playfully. With his rich experience in Yunyang's narration, he naturally knew the crux of the matter. Obviously, there was something wrong with the 9 Supreme Wind who was still alive. Perhaps, this was the other main reason why Yunyang was willing to compromise, to accept his temptation and betray his country's secrets. While Lei Dongtian's interest was piqued, his suspicion towards Yunyang had lowered a notch. Of course, it's a big deal for so many people to go missing. However, the momentum that Yutang's higher-ups have created for the 9 supremes lords has been built up. Not only has the 9 supremes' prestige been restored, it's even greater than before. Yunyang chuckled bitterly. Therefore, no matter how suspicious we are, we can only remain as suspicions. Lei Dongtian nodded and sighed, that's right. This matter is indeed confusing. It's hard to predict and even harder to take action. In the meantime, we can only observe and hope that everything is just a misunderstanding, or that Supreme Wind has other arrangements. However, not long ago, another major incident happened. Yunyang's expression was extremely somber. This time, Lord Supreme Wind has gone up against Yutang's elder, the tutor of 3 generations of emperors, an old official of 4 dynasties, a master of literature, a scholar's grandmaster, and the leader of the literati, He Hanqing. Lei Dongtian beamed. I've heard of this before. I heard that this old Sir He is also, Yun Yang said faintly, this Lord Supreme Wind has said that our Lord He Hanqing, who is almost 90 years old, is from the Four Seasons Tower. He has also said that Lord He is Supreme Lord Spring Frost, one of the four Supreme Lords who are the backbone of the Four Seasons Tower. Yun Yang wore a mocking expression on his face. How hilarious is this? Lei Dongtian said, but why did I hear that this Lord He is Supreme Lord Spring Frost himself? Yun Yang's expression was sorrowful. He did not speak for a long time, only speaking in a low voice after a long period of dejection. Brother Lei, you're not the only one who has this thought. I'm afraid the whole world knows that old Sir He is Supreme Lord Spring Frost. However, is what the world knows the truth? He sighed in grief and indignation. I wonder if Brother Lei knows that old Sir He is almost 90 years old this year. His face is covered with age spots that only an ordinary old man would have. In his lifetime, he has trained more than 10,000 talents for Yutong's civil administration. Lei Dongtian was moved. Any cultivator, even the most ordinary beginner of the peak realm, should have a lifespan of more than 100 years. It was impossible for him to have age spots like an ordinary person, unless that person was really an ordinary old man of 80 or 90 years old. Among all the high officials of Yutong's civil administration, 70% of them are old Sir He's disciples. Yun Yang emphasized each and every word. His Majesty's father is old Sir He's disciple. Even His Majesty himself has been taught by old Sir He, and His Highness the Crown Prince is also old Sir He's disciple. Old Sir He has given his all for Yutong in this lifetime. If he had even the slightest bit of malicious intent, he could have destroyed Yutong in an instant at any time. Yutong would have long ceased to exist in this world. Lei Dongtian's gaze was thoughtful. Then, this old Sir He is not from the Four Seasons Tower? Yun Yang's expression was one of extreme sadness, yet he did not want to speak. Lei Dongtian was shaken. If this was the case, then the conspiracy that Yutong was facing now was too terrifying. Chapter 326. However, old Sir He was still killed. Not only did the old man give his all for Yutong, he even died with his blood spilled. His loyalty was clear. Yun Yang lowered his head sadly, his eyes rimmed red. Lei Dongtian sighed as well, but he was calculating the credibility of this incident and the follow-up. If He Hanqing was not from the Four Seasons Tower, then who was? Also, why did the other party go through so much trouble to create so much trouble? What was their real purpose? No matter what, it must not be a small matter. The battle that day was earth-shattering, it pained the hearts of Tiantang people. Yun Yang could not stop sighing. An old and loyal official of Yutong has died unjustly, just like that. Along with him, there were many Yutong's heroes who were renowned for their time. It's just that these righteous men who were reputed among the people were branded as villains who were lurking in other countries and wanted to commit treason after they died. After the incident, we kept reflecting. Connecting all the things that had happened during this period of time, we thought about what was going on. Yun Yang's voice was low. Then, we discovered a very terrifying thing. Lei Dongtian was completely immersed in the matter now, asking in high spirits, what is it? How terrifying. This matter is truly frightening to think about. Yun Yang's voice was low, his eyes glinting with hatred. Everyone knows that the Four Seasons Tower had gathered many experts to set up some kind of formation during the Battle of the Nine Supremes Lords at Tianxian Cliff. It could be said that the pinnacle experts of the martial world had gathered in that battle. Under such circumstances, the news that spread out can't be false. This means that the initial news of the Nine Supremes Lords being annihilated with no survivors is true. Think about it. Under such circumstances, with the meticulous setup of a super sect like the Four Seasons Tower, how could they have allowed anyone to escape? How could there be? Yunyang asked. Lei Dongtian's gaze was heavy as he said, that's right. He thought about it and said, if I were the one who set up this trap, since I intended to kill all the 9 Supremes in one fell swoop, I wouldn't have left any survivors, I wouldn't have left any hidden threats. Not to mention the number of corpses, can't we count it by counting the number of corpses? How could such a huge loophole like a missing head appear in such a meticulous setup? Yunyang said, what Brother Lei has mentioned is one of the doubts that we have been considering. Lei Dongtian said, this is a major factor that needs to be confirmed. If I were in charge of this matter, even if all the corpses were placed in front of me, I would still behead all of them. I would even grind the corpses into ashes to ensure that nothing goes wrong. Under the suppression of such absolute strength and the concealment ability of the heaven and earth formation, if one person were to escape, wouldn't that be a huge joke? That's impossible. That's impossible. Yunyang heaved a deep sigh. This is the first suspicious point that we have discovered. Lei Dongtian then asked, since there is a first, there must be a second, right? The second suspicious point is the time. Yunyang said, let's pretend that the first question doesn't exist. The Four Seasons Tower's leader has committed an illogical and impossible mistake. There are survivors in the 9 Supremes. But, this Lord Supreme Wind appeared a year ago. That is to say, after the incident at Tianxian Cliff, this Lord Supreme Wind has only reappeared after a full year to seek revenge. Yunyang asked, then, where has he been for this entire year? Why didn't he return earlier? Even if it was just to send some news back. Even if no one else can be trusted, can't His Majesty the Emperor of Yutang be trusted? Could he have betrayed his own empire? Lei Dongtian clapped his hands and said, that's right. This is a suspicious point that is hard to explain. Yunyang gritted his teeth and said, my cultivation base is limited and my knowledge is shallow. I don't understand what kind of injury would require a year of recuperation. Lei Dongtian thought to himself, indeed, my knowledge is shallow. There are plenty of injuries that require a year of recuperation. Yunyang said, however, I do know something else. Lord Supreme Wind has a cultivation skill that can turn into a gale, and it's not difficult for him to kill an opponent of a higher level. However, his cultivation base isn't very high, it's not even as high as mine. The lower the cultivation base, the lower the cost of recovery. If he had really suffered such a serious injury, how could he have recovered in a year? Even with that kind of cultivation base, he wouldn't have suffered such a level of injury. I wonder if Brother Lei thinks that I'm right? Lei Dongtian agreed, you're absolutely right. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary martial artist would have died 17 or 18 times over for an injury that can't be recuperated in a year. This is another suspicious point. Therefore, the period of recuperation and recovery this year is getting stranger and stranger. Also, there's another question I had before. In this 1 year, even if he's recuperating, and we agree with this theory, but, there's no news at all. This isn't right. Lei Dongtian followed his speculation instinctively. That's right. There's no news for a whole year. This can't be justified. Just like what you said, it can't be justified to not trust anyone, but not even the Emperor of Yutang. It's too much. Yunyang snorted and said, even this can be explained. For example, he had to avoid the Four Seasons Tower's eyes and recuperate in an isolated place, so he couldn't send any news. However, you're carrying a blood feud with you. How can you be so calm? Lei Dongtian said, that's right. This is another suspicious point, one that stems from human nature. Supreme Wind has made a strong comeback and has done his utmost against the enemy, showing his true nature. It's indeed suspicious to say that he's been holding it in for a year. Yunyang said, there's still a fourth suspicious point. It's the cultivation base. Supreme Wind's wind manifestation cultivation base. Yun Yang's words hit Lei Dongtian's sore spot. His main focus against Supreme Wind was Supreme Wind's wind manifestation skill. Now that he heard the relevant clue, he could not help feeling anxious and asked, "How so? What's wrong?" He exhaled and said, "The origins of each of the 9 Supreme's lords are mysterious. We don't know where they come from or their background. Even their identity, name, or gender is unknown. Only their cultivation base is recorded. After all, the 9 Supreme's lords have always been the vanguard on the battlefield, beheading generals and capturing flags, displaying their brilliance. On the battlefield, it's taboo to hold back. Therefore, the cultivation base they've displayed should be their true cultivation base. The Empire of Yutong has recorded the cultivation base of the 9 Supreme's lords in detail. When Lord Supreme Wind went to Tianxian Cliff, his cultivation base was at the 4th level of the wind manifestation. However, when Lord Supreme Wind returned this time, the power he displayed was only at the 3rd level of the wind manifestation. A full level lower? Lei Dongtian's interest grew. This is very unusual. He enjoyed the process of unraveling the cocoon. He especially enjoyed the process. It was because it made him look exceptionally intelligent. Yun Yang chuckled bitterly and said, "It looks like Brother Lei has already guessed most of what I want to say. I really don't feel like saying it anymore." Lei Dongtian said excitedly, "Then let me continue on your behalf." Yun Yang looked at Lei Dongtian deeply and said in a low voice, "All right. Then I shall listen to Brother Lei's opinion on this matter. This Lord Supreme Wind carries a blood feud with him. It wasn't easy for him to escape, but he hasn't shown himself for a whole year. When he came out again, his cultivation base had dropped by a level. This is a very strange situation. Since there's such a blood feud and he's thinking of revenge day and night, why wouldn't he cultivate with all his might? Even if he didn't improve, how could he have dropped instead of rising?" Lei Dongtian was confident and pointed out the crux of the problem. "Brother Lei's words are exactly what we're thinking about." Yun Yang sighed. "Also, if he's completely isolated himself from the world during the year of his disappearance, how could he have found the 4 Seasons Tower's people so precisely if he caused such a ruckus the moment he came out? Could it be that the 4 Seasons Tower's people have their identities written on their faces? This doesn't make sense either." Lei Dongtian was indeed the young lord of the Lei family. He had hit the nail on the head and hit the nail on the head. Yun Yang's eyes were filled with admiration as he said, "Brother Lei's wisdom really amazes me." The group of us gathered our thoughts and studied this matter over and over again for a long time before we came to this conclusion. Sigh. Lei Dongtian comforted him, "The main reason is that you don't even want to suspect, you don't want to. Actually, this is nothing. It really is nothing." Ha ha ha. Although he said this was nothing, he was already laughing, his pride evident. After all, the feeling of crushing others with one's intellect was simply too exhilarating. Lei Dongtian smiled reservedly and said, "It's just that when this Lord Supreme Wind made his appearance, it was as if he could predict the future. The moment he made his appearance, he pulled out the pieces continuously. Was there no mistake throughout?" Yun Yang corrected him, "Whether there's any mistake or not depends on the person, because the people he's pulled out were all executed before informing the authorities." Lei Dongtian clapped his hands and said, "That's right, this is even more suspicious. Didn't you just say that when he killed old He that day, there were many famous heroes that had been fighting him for a long time? This is already very clear. Furthermore, since he's back for revenge, his ultimate goal is still to contribute to the country. Why would he bring all of the 9 Heavens Dictum subordinates away from the control of Yutong's higher-ups?" Lei Dongtian said, "This is obviously an attempt to break away from the system. It's a disrespectful act that deceives the emperor and his superiors. It can even be said to be proof of rebellion. Yunyang could only sigh, exactly. This is also the conclusion we've reached. Yunyang then continued, since this Lord Supreme Wind came back, his wind manifestation cultivation base has been improving by leaps and bounds. Not long ago, he could already turn into a tornado. This should be the cultivation base of the wind manifestation's 6th level. Yunyang chuckled bitterly. Supreme Wind has risen by 3 whole levels in less than a year's time. Lei Dongtian cut him off. This is even more wrong. Has this fellow been eating sh*t for the past year? There's no movement for a year and he's even taking a step back. Instead, he's rising rapidly after his return. There's no such logic in this world's cultivation path. Yunyang said, who says it isn't? Let me say a few words. Some people say that the updates these 2 days are slow. Personally, I think that the updates these 2 days are the hardest to write. These few chapters are the essence of this period. Therefore, I'm here to defend myself. Some say that a supporting character's IQ is too low and they'll be tricked easily. But honestly, if everyone had not read the book and understood it, I'm confident that anyone would be tricked by Yunyang's words when they're faced with this. This is what I want to say. Chapter 327. Lei Dongtian asked, anything else? Of course. Yunyang said, after Lord Supreme Wind came back, or rather, after the battle against Old He, we were surprised to find out that not only did Lord Supreme Wind's wind manifestation cultivation base skyrocket, he became all-powerful. Not only is he proficient in the wind manifestation, but he also cultivates the cloud manifestation, fire manifestation, blood manifestation, and thunder manifestation. It's amazing, as if the 9 Supremes had joined hands. Lei Dongtian furrowed his brows. This time, even with his intelligence, he could not figure it out. The 9 Heavens Domain successor can only be chosen by a single physique. Yunyang sighed. Yunyang sighed and said, only when a single physique has reached a certain level can it be chosen by the 9 Heavens Domain. This has already been proven. Therefore, it is impossible for any one of us, the 9 Supremes Lords, to possess the cultivation skill of others. This was probably Yunyang's half-truth and half-falsehood. However, there was no one else in this world who could know the truth of this matter other than him. Therefore, no matter how Yunyang boasted, he would not have to worry that someone would see through him. What was more, this reason was a basic understanding that everyone in this world acknowledged deeply. That's right. The 9 Heavens Domain is so mystical. It's not just a single extraordinary physique. How can it be acknowledged? Brother Yun, it's wise of you to think of this. Lei Dongtian breathed in deeply. There's indeed a huge problem with this Lord Supreme Wind. There are a total of 9 suspicious points, then. Yunyang said, after our Yutong's higher-ups studied it for a long time, we've finally come to a terrifying conclusion. This Lord Supreme Wind is most probably fake. Lei Dongtian sighed as well, thinking to himself, I've only heard half of it and I've already confirmed that this Supreme Wind is fake. You guys have actually studied it for such a long time. Even if the situation is compelling, there should be a limit. Besides, this Lord Supreme Wind is very likely to be from the 4 Seasons Tower, maybe even the 4 Seasons Tower's higher-ups. After the ambush, he obtained the 9 Supremes Lord's cultivation manuals, which is how he could combine the manifestation cultivation skills, Yunyang said. I thought of that a long time ago. Lei Dongtian thought disdainfully. As for the so-called treacherous officials of the 4 Seasons Tower that Lord Supreme Wind has uncovered, I'm afraid they're all Yutong's loyal warriors. Yunyang closed his eyes in anguish. Brother Lei, perhaps you can't understand how I feel. Lei Dongtian sighed again and again. I can totally feel this feeling. I can empathize. It is indeed not a good feeling. It's more than uncomfortable. After confirming the refresh, everyone felt like dying. Yunyang said, according to my father, His Majesty fainted on the spot, vomiting blood. Sigh. Lei Dongtian sighed. He thought to himself, if I had to say, it would be a great fortune for your country if such a muddle-headed king died of anger. The most serious thing is, Yunyang continued, everything that Lord Supreme Wind has done during this period of time, at least on the surface, has been done in the name of the Empire of Yutong. What makes us speechless and uncomfortable is that we've done the most appropriate and perfect cleanup work for each and every one of them. Even Lei Dongtian was in disbelief. How could the Imperial Court of Yutong be so stupid? It was truly a King miracle. It was truly a sight to behold. Being toyed with by an entire nation for a year, they were still suffering in silence and were even going to continue to suffer? It's hard to back down now. If we were to reveal this secret, it would be equivalent to everyone in the Imperial Court of Yutong collectively slapping their own mouths, slapping them to death. What's more, once this layer of veil is revealed, the morale of the people and the military will vanish in an instant. Yunyang was inexplicably sorrowful. Therefore, even though we know that he's a spy, we still have to continue supporting him, using his reputation to stabilize the people's hearts. Yunyang looked at Lei Dongtian. Brother Lei, speaking of this matter, including His Majesty, everyone has a bellyful of blood and tears. Lei Dongtian grinned. It would be a miracle if all of you did not have a bellyful of blood and tears. This kind of privacy, Yunyang wore a smile that looked like he was crying. How would we dare to speak of it? We can only swallow our grievances, afraid that the slightest bit of it will leak out. When that happens, the people's hearts will crumble, the military's morale will crumble, the empire will no longer be a nation. He looked at Lei Dongtian sincerely. Brother Lei, please understand. I really didn't mean to make things difficult for you just now. Lei Dongtian said sympathetically, I understand how you feel and I can empathize. If I were the one involved in this, I wouldn't speak of it so easily either. This matter is too embarrassing, it's an embarrassment to billions of people in the empire. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to afford to be embarrassed like this. Lei Dongtian sighed and said, Brother Yun, I understand you. It's not easy for all of you Yutong's higher-ups. Thank you, thank you. Yunyang shook Lei Dongtian's hand excitedly. Brother Lei, long live your understanding. Now, Lord Supreme Wind, who has been making frequent movements, seems to have felt our alienation. Recently, he has disappeared from Tiantang City without a trace. Yunyang said, we can't find his whereabouts at all now. No, perhaps I should say that ever since this Lord Supreme Wind reappeared, none of us have been able to find out where he is. This person is so meticulous and careful in his actions that it's infuriating and insane. I've never seen such a meticulous character. He looked at Lei Dongtian and said, since this person has taken away Brother Lei's fiancée, my suggestion is, Lei Dongtian's gaze shifted as he looked at Yunyang seriously and asked, what suggestion? Does he know that this lady is your fiancée? Yunyang asked. This. Lei Dongtian was suddenly at a loss for words. That's right, does he know? Perhaps, or perhaps, he did not know. Yunyang rolled his eyes inwardly and continued to guide him, let's put it this way. Has that person seen Brother Lei's face? Lei Dongtian said, of course he has. We've met once that day. Although I didn't see his face due to his wind manifestation skill, he must have seen my face. Yunyang said, if so, he only needs to ask your fiancé and he'll probably know your identity. Lei Dongtian said, of course, my fiancé knows my background. Yunyang pondered and said, if so, he lifted his head and gritted his teeth, a cold glint shooting from his eyes. You only need to wait patiently. He will come to you. Lei Dongtian asked, why do you say so? Yun Yang said, although Brother Lei's fiancée is the most beautiful woman in the world and any man would be tempted, for someone like him, I think, he should not be lacking in women, am I right? Lei Dongtian smiled and said, of course, any cultivator who has achieved something will not be lacking in women. If so, he most likely has some ulterior motive for kidnapping your fiancée. Yun Yang said, as for whether this ulterior motive is with your fiancée or with you, we'll have to wait and see. No matter what, since he dares to kidnap someone right in front of you, at least it means that he is not afraid of you and has the confidence to do so. Since he is not afraid of you, even if his initial target was not you, I'm afraid it's inevitable that he will target you now. As the saying goes, one thing is dirty, two things are dirty. Other than being a great threat, Brother Lei's identity can also bring great benefits. It's not surprising that he would be tempted. Therefore, he will definitely come to you. As for what conditions he will ask for, it's hard to predict. Yun Yang said, anyway, as long as he doesn't reveal his true form, you can't hurt him. Not to mention that he has a hostage in his hand and a lot of bargaining chips. At least for now, he has the upper hand and is fearless. Listening to Yun Yang's analysis, Lei Dongtian thought that it was very reasonable. Yun Yang's brain was indeed very good. It seemed that calling him stupid was an unjust accusation. It was probably the officials of Yutong's imperial court who were stupid, the emperor of Yutong who was stupid, or perhaps they were too passive in their positions. One wrong step and everything else would go wrong. Sigh, if I were the emperor of Yutong, I'm afraid I wouldn't be much better off in such a situation. It's really too much of a dilemma. Other than that, I have to remind Brother Lei. Everyone is in a different position now, but, the enemy of my enemy will always have a bit of kindness. Yun Yang said seriously, although Brother Lei and this old man's cultivation base is high and it's rare to find a worthy opponent in this world, I'm afraid Brother Lei still doesn't know what kind of existence the Four Seasons Tower is. Lei Dongtian said faintly, I don't care what kind of existence the Four Seasons Tower is, but it's a fact that they've touched my people. That won't do. Yun Yang said worriedly, Brother Lei, you come from a reclusive family and have your own strength of character, but listen to my advice. With the backing of your huge family and the ease with which flying mystical beasts can send messages, you can summon a large number of experts with just a letter. Why would he put his precious body in danger? The Four Seasons Tower is by no means an easy opponent. Yutong is still a powerful country in the world, but we're still being toyed around by them. Their strength is evident. What's more, perhaps the ability they've shown now is just the tip of the iceberg. I've heard countless legends about them, such as subduing the world by force, bathing the martial world in blood, confronting the world's unrivaled expert and not losing the upper hand, and so on. Brother Lei, you must be careful. What he meant was, if your family is so powerful, why don't you send more experts to annihilate the Four Seasons Tower? Chapter 328. Lei Dongtian chuckled bitterly and said, Brother Yun, I know what you're saying is for my sake and your words are sincere. The enemy of my enemy will always have a tinge of kindness and your words have won my heart. However, you have to think about it. If I were to summon too many experts, would he still dare to come? Yun Yang said, he can hide in the dark. It is better to be safe than sorry. Lei Dongtian pondered and said, Brother Yun, you don't have to persuade me anymore. I've made up my mind. Just the two of us alone are enough to turn the Four Seasons Tower upside down. At the very least, saving my fiancée will be a piece of cake. Yun Yang said worriedly, if so, I wish Brother Lei success and all your wishes come true. However, Brother Lei, if there's anything you need help with, don't be shy. Still, the enemy of my enemy will always have a tinge of kindness. Lei Dongtian smiled and said, I understand. If there's a need, I won't be shy with Brother Yun. Lei Dongtian's impression of Yun Yang had gone up a notch. In fact, Lei Dongtian had no intention of forming a friendship with Yun Yang from the beginning. Even if Yun Yang was not related to Ji Lingxi, their positions were different. Yun Yang's shallow ability was not even worthy of Lei Dongtian's attention, which had already determined Lei Dongtian's original intention. However, Yun Yang had always poked into Lei Dongtian's thoughts and thought for him in many ways. Even if it was because of the many benefits Lei Dongtian had given him and the relationship of the enemy's enemy, Yun Yang's concern was still genuine. Of course, Lei Dongtian would not be completely untouched. Therefore, his tone of conversation with Yun Yang had gradually turned into one that came from the bottom of his heart. This had once again proven the level of a certain someone's acting skills. It was truly vivid and penetrating. One could not help but admire him. Yun Yang nodded, but he still seemed to be worried. He pondered for a moment and said, "Brother Lei, why don't you and your family stay at my house? We can take care of each other. This is the residence of Marquis after all. No matter what, that fellow is still carrying Lord Supreme Win's name. He won't be too harsh on us." Lei Dongtian smiled and said proudly, "Brother Yun, are you trying to protect me?" Yun Yang replied, "What are you talking about, Brother Lei?" "This is just an expedient measure," Lei Dongtian said. "Brother Yun, I understand your good intentions. However, with my cultivation, if I still need you to protect me, then I really won't have the face to see anyone." Yun Yang kept quiet for a while and said, "If so, Brother Lei, please choose a place not far from me to stay temporarily. I will always be worried. Brother Lei, there are so many of us, yet we've still been fooled by a single person until now. This person is truly resourceful and full of schemes. It's impossible to guard against his crafty schemes. Even if Brother Lei's martial prowess is outstanding and you're not afraid of the enemy's attack, but if they use strange methods, can Brother Lei really handle it? Why don't Brother Lei stay in the inn opposite my house? Although it's not a top-notch inn, the best inns in the city are too far away from the residence of Yun. If anything happens, I'm afraid I won't be able to help. If Brother Lei were to live across from me and something really happened, would be the host after all. It would be much more convenient for me to deal with human affairs than Brother Lei. If necessary, I could even give Brother Lei some advice." Yun Yang said sincerely, "Brother Lei, when you're outside, don't be stubborn." Lei Dongtian saw that Yun Yang's sincerity was all for his sake and felt touched. He said, "If so, both of us will stay in the inn diagonally opposite." "Thank you, Brother Yun." Yun Yang smiled and said, "It's rare to have such a good friend like Brother Lei. You're so skilled, your family background is even better and your character is so good. Of course, this young brother wants to get closer to Brother Lei." He smiled shyly and said, "Speaking of which, I was greedy just now. I feel very guilty now. Actually, Brother Lei can just give me some." This young brother was too greedy just now. As he spoke, he took off the ring and said, "Brother Lei, please keep these treasures. This young brother is really ashamed to accept them." Initially, Lei Dongtian's plan was to wait for Yun Yang to finish talking. He would take these things back if he said so. "Do you have the ability to not return them?" However, now that they were having such a pleasant conversation and Yun Yang was so considerate of him, how could he really take them back? Moreover, he was going to stay here for a period of time and had to rely on Yun Yang for many things. After all, only Yun Yang could find such a peerless secret in this place. Look for someone else? Should he look for the emperor or the prince? Not to mention whether the other person would be helpful or not, it would be troublesome to reconnect with them and he would have to give them some benefits. Instead of that, it was better to hand Yun Yang over. Even if he were to take them back, it would be after the matter was settled. He could not do it now anyway. "What are you talking about, Brother Yun?" Lei Dongtian frowned and said unhappily, "Brother, what kind of person do you think I am?" Just as Yun Yang was about to speak, Lei Dongtian had already stopped him and said, "Could it be that in Brother Yun's eyes, this elder brother is someone who doesn't believe in his words and has no eloquence?" Yun Yang smiled awkwardly. "Well," Lei Dongtian said heartily, "Brother, to be honest, I do have a lot of these things. If Brother Yun needs them, I'll bring some for you every time I come in the future." Outside the door, the corners of the black-robed elder's lips twitched. "You have a lot? You bring some every time you come? Young lord, you really know how to brag. A storage ring like this would fetch a sky-high price even in the bound of universe. I've only gotten this one after living for so long. I actually have so many of them that I can give one every time I send a gift. You've given my things away and you're still bragging here. I wonder if this old man can make up for it when I go back." Sigh. Yun Yang and Lei Dongtian had a pleasant conversation. The more they talked, the more congenial they became. Both of them felt that they were in love and almost became sworn brothers. Lei Dongtian had wanted to reveal Ji Lingxi's secret and tell Yun Yang that this was the girl he liked. However, after seeing Yun Yang's reaction, he had long suppressed this initial thought. No matter how he looked at it now, he felt that Yun Yang was an honest person who cared for him wholeheartedly. It was not nice to use such a trick, not to mention that they still had to work together during this period of time. The follow-up would have to wait until the end of the collaboration. Looking at Yun Yang's sincere gaze, he could not help but sigh in guilt. "Sigh, I still have to kill such a person when I leave and snatch these things back. It's a little apologetic and uncomfortable." That night, Yun Yang and Lei Dongtian drank to their heart's content and talked about everything under the sun. They talked about poetry, chess, calligraphy and painting, all sorts of things. Both of them were in high spirits as they talked. Yun Yang took advantage of Lei Dongtian's good mood to ask for a few healing medicinal pills for Dong Tianling and Old Pang. "Brother Lei, although those two people have offended you, but, I know what you mean. Ha ha ha. Here are a few pills. Take them and give them one each. You don't need the rest. Brother, you can keep them. I have plenty of these things. It's really not a problem." The black-robed elder drank cup after cup of wine. He was bewildered. Back in the Xianhuang world, our young master was one of the most infamous little devils. Everything he did was based on his mood, and he would kill anyone at the slightest disagreement. How did he end up making friends here? The way things unfolded was too strange. Was this a twist of fate or a change of heart? While Yun Yang and Lei Dongtian were drinking, Lei Dongtian and Yun Yang had been drinking. The snow was still falling. In the midst of the heavy snow, the saber light flashed. Two ordinary-looking people who seemed to be traveling merchants appeared at the south gate of Tiantang City. "The saber is here, right?" "Yes, it is. Let's go in." "All right." That night, Lei Dongtian and the black-robed elder returned to the inn. "Young lord, aren't you being too generous to Yun Yang?" The black-robed elder was still feeling melancholic. Lei Dongtian said faintly, "I have my own considerations regarding this matter. Old Mu, what you're most upset about and concerned about is that I've given him your storage ring, am I right?" The black-robed elder, Old Mu's expression darkened. He lowered his head and said, "This old servant has no such thoughts. Everything this old servant has is given by the main family. How can I have any resentment?" Lei Dongtian stared at him coldly. After a while, he said, "After we return this time, I will order the housekeeper to compensate you with a storage ring. I will not let you suffer any losses." Sigh, "Old Mu, do you know that your biggest weakness is, you are too calculative about small gains and pay too much attention to the current gains and losses? No, I should say that you're too serious. why can't you look further? Old Mu paled. Yes, this old servant accepts young lord's teachings. Not to mention that you've been in my family for so many years, you've followed me for at least 6 years, haven't you? Lei Dongtian said faintly, you have the ability and cultivation base, you have the knowledge and experience, and you have the brains to scheme. You're the best choice and the best in every aspect. If you can change this shortcoming of seeking revenge for the smallest grievance and being narrow-minded, you'll be my first choice after I become the family head in the future. Old Mu's breathing quickened and his eyes glowed with surprise. Lei Dongtian was the first-in-line successor to the Lei family. It was a fact that his status and identity were set in stone. The weight of his words could be said to be sufficient, there was no need to doubt it. Young lord, I'll definitely change. Old Mu was determined. He must be open-minded in the future. He must be open-minded and heroic in body and mind. He must change his shortcoming and be magnanimous. After giving Old Mu a taste of his own medicine, Lei Dongtian nodded in satisfaction at Old Mu's reaction and said, Old Mu, do you think that Yunyang can become another cultivation cauldron for my 7 emotions? Chapter 329. Old Mu was a little dumbfounded when he heard the question. After a while, he said, Young lord, please forgive this old servant for wanting to spoil your mood. Yunyang's looks are indeed outstanding and his innate talent is that of the golden jade physique, which is rather rare. However, he is not suitable to be plucked, especially when young master has never had a liking for men. How could he be tempted by this child? If this is the case, this child cannot be left alive. This old servant will get rid of him later. Young master, please don't be impulsive. It was Lei Dongtian's turn to be dumbfounded. He looked at Old Mu with his mouth agape, almost spitting out a mouthful of blood. He only spoke again after the time it took to drink a cup of tea. His tone was filled with melancholy. Old Mu, what are you thinking? I said that I want Yunyang to be my cultivation vessel, but I didn't say that I want to use those dirty tricks. My art of Thousand Hammers 7 Emotions Devastation has only passed 2 stages so far. The candidates for the 3rd stage are Ji Lingxi and Yu Rolan, and they are already in the game now. However, the candidate for the 4th stage is still being searched. I'm thinking of Yunyang. Lei Dongtian murmured, is it possible? Old Mu heard Lei Dongtian's intention and knew that he was thinking in the wrong direction. He smiled sheepishly and said, I was thinking in the wrong direction. Lei Dongtian rolled his eyes. Old Mu sat quietly and listened, not daring to speak again. After all, he was just a servant. He only had a smattering of knowledge about Lei Dongtian's cultivation method from his usual behavior. He was completely clueless about the specific situation. Otherwise, he would not have thought that Lei Dongtian had been bewitched by Yunyang and had developed an ulterior motive. In fact, Lei Dongtian would not let him know the secret of his cultivation method. Joy, anger, worry, thought, sorrow, fear, shock. Lei Dongtian calculated carefully in his heart, I've completed the joy, the worry has been reversed. As long as Ji Lingxi and Yu Rolan are completely in the game, they can help me complete the fear. However, the anger and sadness that follow after that have yet to be taken care of. If Yunyang can be used, perhaps he can be cultivated to be the carrier of anger. However, this state of anger needs to be broken down due to anger. Only when one's mind is in chaos will it be effective. I'm afraid I'll have to put in more effort during this process. Lei Dongtian frowned and pondered. After a while, he shook his head in frustration and said, Old Mu, do you think that what Yunyang said is true? Old Mu thought for a long time with a frown and said cautiously, Young lord, if you ask me, what Yunyang has said, is impossible to be false. There are too many pieces of evidence that can be investigated. Any one of them can prove that Yunyang's words are false, but it's also because of this that it proves that everything he said is true. Lei Dongtian nodded with satisfaction. For example? For example, the time when the 9 Supremes met with mishap and when Supreme Wind appeared again. First, Supreme Wind's cultivation base before and after the incident. Second, the rapid growth of his cultivation base and the difference in power each time he appeared can be investigated in detail. Third, after Supreme Wind appeared, the people he captured and whether or not he handed over their whereabouts to the authorities are all obvious. Fourth, He Hunching's identity can't be concealed anymore. Fifth, Old Mu said, these are all obvious examples. They can't be faked by humans. We only need to go through them once and we can prove whether Yun Yang's words are true or not. Lei Dongtian said, then from tomorrow onwards, go and investigate all of these. Although Yun Yang's words are highly credible, it's better to be certain in your heart just in case. Yes, this old servant understands. After the investigation, if there's no mistake, I'm prepared to befriend this young Master Yun. A mysterious smile hung on Lei Dongtian's face. Old Mu asked in surprise, young master, are you planning to carry it out at the same time? It's better to be prepared than to bury the line when the time comes. Lei Dongtian nodded. First, befriend him wholeheartedly and become his best friend. Take care of him meticulously, treat him with sincerity, and stick by his side in life and death. Finally, there's an extreme reversal at a critical moment. Once he's hurt by love, he'll be enraged and will no longer believe in friendship and brotherly love. In the end, his primordial yang energy will be scattered and he'll be lost. Then, he'll become a part of my 7 emotions praxis. Old Mu said worriedly, however, the process will still be difficult. After all, young Lord needs to make a sincere effort in the early stage. The biggest taboo of this 7 emotions praxis is the setbacks in the cultivation journey. Once the cultivator loses control of his emotions, he'll trigger the demon in his heart to devour him. Although Yun Yang's ability is weak, he has quite a background in the empire of Yutong and his influence is considerable. He may not be a good choice. No, Yun Yang is the best choice. Those who have cultivated the 7 emotions praxis will have their emotions sublimated to perfection, the ultimate state of not being affected by love. The process requires the cultivator to go through the trials of love and be hurt. If I'm not hurt myself, it'll be difficult for this art to be perfected. Only when both parties are in opposition and he's hurt as well, stacking the wounds, can this art be accomplished. It's like 2 tigers fighting, survival of the fittest. The winner will devour the loser and own everything. You'll have to reach the ultimate state of not being affected by love. Is it so easy to cultivate the magical power to control the 7 emotions of everyone in the world? Lei Dongtian said faintly, when the time comes, even a strong cultivator whose cultivation base is far higher than mine will be impacted by the hurt of love when facing the 7 emotions praxis. There's no way to defend against it. This is truly an invincible cultivation method. Old Mu was at a loss when he heard it. It was obvious that he could not imagine the future of this cultivation method. Lei Dongtian, on the other hand, was in high spirits as he said with a smile, you don't understand. Some states can only be reached by those who are loyal to their emotions, or those who are extremely dedicated, or those who are extremely crazy and fanatical. And such a person usually hides or holds onto a true feeling in his heart. Lei Dongtian said faintly, as for my 7 emotions praxis, it can erase the true love in his heart in an instant. Therefore, no matter how invincible the expert is, he can only extend his neck to be chopped off when he faces me. As for the prerequisite to activate it, there's actually only one. Find out which love he cares about. Lei Dongtian said faintly, go to sleep. Old Mu agreed and went to the room next door to rest. Lei Dongtian ordered Old Mu to rest, but he did not rest in peace. Instead, he took out the portraits of Ji Lingxi and Yu Rolan and hung them by his bed. His gaze was fixated on the portraits of the two ladies, his eyes filled with inextricable affection as he murmured, "Perhaps you don't know how much I like you. I like you like a madman. I want you like a madman, but I can't. I have to destroy you and erase this love completely. Do you know the extreme agony in my heart?" In the portrait, the 4 cold gazes of the two ladies were like 4 sharp arrows that shot towards him. Only when the body is free and safe, but the psyche collapses under extreme fear and despair, can I obtain the primordial ean of chaos and complete a part of my 7 emotions praxis. But how do you know the extent of my agony? His eyes were filled with passion and infatuation, but there was also a kind of extreme madness in them. When I'm done with my cultivation, you'll all be dead. But from then on, I'll have to remember you all forever. Do you know, this is also a kind of torture for me. At least, before I reach the state where I won't fall in love, you'll haunt me like a nightmare. But everything is for the sake of invincibility. It's worth it. Do you understand? Do you understand? Your sacrifice will create an invincible expert. I'm sure you'll feel gratified. He murmured madly, his voice extremely low. However, it was still audible. It was as if he himself had suppressed his twisted mentality to the extreme, and now it had exploded out. He had to spit it out. Outside the window. Chapter 330. Sigh. A silhouette floated in. Has that fellow left? The visitor was none other than Ji Lingxi, holding a big red apple in her hand. Yunyang frowned. Lingxi, you silly girl, let me tell you, a lady must knock before entering someone else's door in the future. There's no exception here. You must cultivate this habit. Otherwise, how are you going to behave in the future? Ji Lingxi frowned. Yunyang, what do you mean? Can you not use such a tone? I'm not your daughter nor your younger sister. Can you not always put on the airs of an elder in front of me? Can I? I'm begging you, okay? Yunyang sighed helplessly. All right then, he raised his head and said seriously, Lady Ji, how do you do? Please, when you enter my door or someone else's door in the future, you must first. Before Yunyang could finish his words, Ji Lingxi had already turned to leave. The young lady was trembling with rage. She bit off half of the apple in her hand, even the core, and chewed it with all her might. This blockhead. Serves you right to be a bachelor for the rest of your life. Not long after Ji Lingxi left, Yunyang's door was knocked on. Come in. Yunyang called out. Young Master Yun, are you busy? Yu Rolan walked in. Yunyang stood up quickly and said respectfully, Sister Lan, you're here. Please, take a seat. Behind Yu Rolan, Ji Lingxi watched with a pout as Yunyang welcomed Yu Rolan in politely and respectfully. He even personally placed a stool down for Yu Rolan and looked at Ji Lingxi. Oh, Lingxi is here too. Find a place to sit. Ji Lingxi wanted to turn and leave at once. Was the difference in treatment too obvious? Was there such a big difference in our appearances? Was she that young? Was Sister Lan that old? Didn't the two of you argue again when Lingxi came just now? Yu Rolan asked as if she was having a headache. She truly did not understand why Yunyang was like this. No matter what, he doted on Ji Lingxi and followed her lead. However, this doting was the complete doting of an elder and had nothing to do with the relationship between a man and a woman. It was like a pair of parallel lines that would never intersect. What was going on? Also, I'm Lingxi's sister. We're just sisters and I'm not anyone to you. Is there a need to treat me with such respect? What did she mean by treating him like an elder? I'm only 1 or 2 years older than Lingxi. Yunyang smiled and said, nothing much just now. I was just telling Lingxi to knock first when entering someone else's room, just like Sister Lan did just now. Sister Lan and Lingxi should call me Cousin Brother Yun or Cousin Brother Yun when they meet me in the future. Even if it's a more private meeting or when it's just the three of us, we have to maintain this form of address. Right now, our greatest enemy is in the inn not far from us. Their cultivation is too high, so high that it's beyond our understanding. We must be careful. Even if they are far away, it's not certain that they won't be able to hear our conversation. We only need to hear one sentence from a conversation like tonight's, and we're all done for. Yunyang said seriously, Sister Lan, you understand. We don't have any power to fight them now, so we have to get used to the new way of getting along and acknowledge it from the bottom of our hearts. Yu Rulan answered readily, Cousin Brother Yun is right. We really have to get used to it. Yunyang looked at Ji Lingxi, obviously not trusting the latter's temperament. Not only was Ji Lingxi unable to vent her anger, it was getting more and more intense. She bit her lips and only said after a long time, feeling wronged, Cousin Brother Yun is right. Good girl. Yunyang looked comforted. However, the compliment almost made Ji Lingxi lose her mind from her anger. She sat on the edge of the bed, almost collapsing Yunyang's bed. Raising her hand, there was a green cucumber in her hand. She bit down viciously, her cheeks puffed up as she chewed furiously, her eyes glinting fiercely at Yunyang. It was as if the cucumber was Yunyang, or perhaps it was Yunyang's flesh that young Mistress Ji wanted to chew into pieces. What's the background of these two people? Yu Rulan frowned and asked, Cousin Brother Yun, have you found out anything? Yunyang sorted out his thoughts and said, this Lei family's young lord is most likely from another realm, or a mysterious place called the Bound of Universe. Yu Rulan and Ji Lingxi's eyes froze. Bound of Universe? Someone from the upper realm? Coming from renowned aristocratic families, they were no strangers to the term upper realm. Although they did not know what level the Bound of Universe was or what kind of realm it was, they knew that it was not a simple place. At least, it was far above the Tianxian continent. Silence. Yunyang said, the reason why he's looking for trouble with you is probably to use you to complete a stage of his cultivation method. I didn't hear clearly what cultivation method it is and what it's about. But it's probably related to the 7 emotions. According to my speculation, the cultivation method should be an extremely evil one, but once it's cultivated, it'll be a mystical cultivation method with boundless power. Yunyang analyzed carefully, using the 7 emotions of life as the cultivation goal, it should be to fall in love, then leave it, break it, and destroy it. Even to the point of being merciless, heartless, and so on. Finally, this extremely evil and inhumane cultivation method is achieved. Yunyang sighed. I don't know what you all think, but the degree of evil in this cultivation method can be considered the most extreme cultivation method I've ever seen in my life. There's no other. Yu Rulan and Ji Lingxi were both born in noble families, so they were knowledgeable people. Hearing Yunyang's words, they felt their scalps tingle. Yu Rulan paled and said, you mean, that person is using both of us as cauldrons? Using us to perfect his cultivation method? Yunyang nodded. That should be the case. Otherwise, there's no way to explain his previous actions. Yu Rulan and Ji Lingxi's expressions grew darker, extremely unpleasant. Cauldrons. These 2 words were the 2 words that all women in this world who knew the true meaning of these 2 words hated the most. Such an action was also an action that all women hated the most. He's been chasing us without killing us or capturing us. He's been torturing us continuously. Is this also part of his cultivation method? Ji Lingxi asked. Most likely. Yunyang said, I eavesdropped on their conversation just now. There seemed to be a line about, only when the body is free and safe but the psyche can't withstand the extreme fear and despair can I obtain the primordial yin of chaos and complete a part of my 7 emotions praxis. What does it mean? Ji Lingxi asked. Yu Rulan sighed. What else could it mean? It's nothing more than to let us be in an environment of freedom and not be controlled. He then exerted pressure until our psyche is naturally crushed by the pressure. Even the primordial yin belonging to a lady of primordial yin will be messed up along with the mental breakdown. This is the perfect time for him to strike. If it weren't for Cousin Yun's timely appearance, we might have really fallen into his hands. Yu Rulan blushed as she spoke, gritting her teeth. It was no wonder. At that time, the two of them were almost on the verge of giving up when they were being hunted down. When they even had the will to die, the other party would immediately slow down to give them a buffer and a chance to rest. When they were about to give up, the other party would change his strategy and start targeting their appearances. Whether it was then or now, it was obvious that the other party wanted to keep tormenting the two girls until they went insane. Ji Lingxi said with a dark expression, "Don't tell me that both our families don't know about this? The pursuit has been going on for such a long time, it's been 2.5 months. Yu Rulan's gaze dimmed as she said softly, "Lingxi, why are you still thinking about your family's help even now? This is the fate of the daughters of our noble families. From birth, our fate has long been decided. In the first 10 to 20 years, we had the glory of being a young lady, we could have anything we wanted. However, when we grow up, it's time for us to pay the price for everything we've enjoyed all these years. If the family needs to maintain its current strength through marriage, they'll sacrifice our bodies in exchange. If the family has offended someone they shouldn't and needs a buffer, they'll use our bodies to exchange and mediate. If the family wants to advance and become stronger, they'll still use our bodies in exchange. All in all, as long as the family needs it, the meaning of our existence is to wait for the right price to be sold, to be used in times of need." Yu Rulan said softly, "Why would our personal wishes be cared about? Those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles. Our wishes aren't even considered trifles, they're merely insignificant. After I understood this, I've long given up on all beautiful dreams. Sometimes, I feel like I'm a high-class prostitute, flaunting my extraordinariness and uniqueness. Deep down, I'm just raising my price and waiting for a suitable price. Compared to the girls from humble families, we so-called young ladies of noble families are perhaps even more pitiful. Ordinary well-off families or even poor families still have kinship, but for us, it's an extravagant hope, an unattainable extravagant hope." Yu Rulan's voice was low, her words clear, but the resentment that flowed between the lines was like a surging volcano that was about to erupt. "Even if we're engaged and we've found someone, we can still go back on our word when the family faces a greater temptation, we can still." You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.